92 Collinsville. BK and Ferrario are broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Fedurko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
The biggest storyline tonight is you, the fans. The Blues are 11-0-1 at home since the Four Nations face-off break. I think the biggest advantage that the Blues have in this series is how they've played at home. Yeah. And I think a big part of that is truly the energy that they get from this fan base when they're playing
with
here.
a shot. Rebounding score! Thomas in the circle, backs up, deflection, score! He's got two!
When you're on the road, you hear the crowd at the beginning. Puck drops, you don't hear the crowd. But when you're at home, it gives our players juice. You could tell we were really skating tonight.
Buch finding Thomas in the middle. Fowler, score! 3-0 St. Louis. By Thomas, Blues score! If you've got a hat, chuck it in your radio. And the St. Louis Blues get the goal back. Hat-trick goal for Pavel Buch.
And the Blues are going to find a way to win. They're going to do it because it's on home ice. It's in front of you, the greatest fans of the sport of hockey. And they're going to be down 2-1 in this series. And they'll have an opportunity to get right back into this thing on
Big
top.
hit by Fox on the shin. The neighbors, they score! They're keeping it on. They're pouring it on. And Alexei Taranchenko gets his first career playoff goal.
Yeah, it's what we needed. It's a long series. We climbed back into it, and it was a good game tonight. We got to focus on Sunday and making sure we're prepared and coming out the same way.
That's what it sounded like right here in your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN last night. That voice you heard at the end there was Robert Thomas talking about what they were able to accomplish last night and what lies ahead for them in game number 4. We'll talk about both here today on BK and Ferrario alongside Alex and T-Bone. I'm BK. We are broadcasting live at the E&B Granite Studios out at the Centene Community Ice Center. Jordan Deacon back in the studio for us today. Boys, they were buzzing, and they were buzzing early last night. Blues get off to a 2-0 lead early on in the first period. 5 minutes in, it felt as though the game was over, and the Winnipeg Jets head coach basically admitted as much last night in the post-game press conference where he said, hey, we lost that game in the first 5 minutes. Well, all right, I agree with you there. Alex, what did you take away from last night's massive victory from the St. Louis Blues, winning 7-2 against the Winnipeg Jets?
A couple of takeaways. First of all, you got home at 1:30 in the morning, and you said, you know what I should do? Make that open to just remind everybody that the best fans in hockey are what got this team in the win column.
That's right. Somebody had to do it.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. Somebody had to take advantage of this. I mean, there were tons of takeaways.
Alex, you sound terrible.
Dude, I went in and I recorded this date in Blues history today, and I go, hey, this audio quality is you know what, but we're gonna power through this one, boys. What?
Somebody get this man a water.
I've been living off of throat lozenges.
You should quit smoking.
Yeah, tell me about it. I sound like I'm serving at a diner right now.
Right, let's get this.
Let's get into this. What they needed was not just the home crowd, but they needed to get the feeling back into their locker room that they could win in any fashion. Like we said yesterday, talking about how the team really hasn't had to deal with a whole lot of adversity, and the biggest adversity that they had were those 3 losses coming home where they had to win against Utah. And what did they do? They blew them out of the water in the first 10 minutes of that hockey game, and then they said, cool, we've got this. That's what last night was. This was nothing about the Winnipeg Jets and finding a secret to beating that team. This was all about the Blues bringing the physicality from the moment that puck dropped, feeding off of the energy and putting pressure on Winnipeg. And they did so in the first 5 minutes. When Buch scored at 48 seconds, it didn't feel like the game was over, but what it did feel like was, cool, Connor Hellebuyck's shaky. Winnipeg looked like they couldn't get the puck out of their zone. They looked scrambly. They didn't know what they were doing. And then when they got the second one, when they got the third one, you could just tell that Winnipeg Jets bench was like, what are we supposed to do here? So that feeling last night, first of all, the atmosphere, it was the best that I felt since the 2019 Cup final. Like, that was the best atmosphere I've been a part of since that season. But on top of it, I have not seen that version of the Blues in a long time. And that was just a scary good performance that you hope that they could capitalize on.
Yeah, I mean, watching them come out in a blaze of glory last night, I mean, it was a reminder to the Winnipeg Jets of, hey, we're not just going to roll over and play dead, right? I thought that was the most important part of, hey, sure, you're back on home ice. You want to capitalize. The fans are going to bring the energy, but you got to bring it too. My biggest fear going into last night was, boy, what happens if the Jets are the first team to get on the board? And the Blues didn't let that happen. They took advantage early on. They're able to score. They got to their game. And not only did they get to their game, they got to their game, and they still brought the physicality. I don't know how anybody in this series is getting out of bed this morning, guys. The Blues were bringing.
Oh man, I really couldn't wake up.
Yeah, seriously. You didn't even get hit last night. The Blues hit people 60 times. So that's the most impressive part for me is that they were able to get to their game. They were physical like they had planned to be. They shut down the top line of the Winnipeg Jets. Like they did everything that they spoke about. Hey, here's what we need to do if we're going to win Game 3. They came out and they executed from the moment the puck was dropped.
39 hits in the first period. 39. 63 hits in total. According to Matthew DeFranks, add in the 68 from Winnipeg, there's 131 combined hits. It's the third most in a regulation playoff game since the NHL started tracking hits in 2005.
The Blues have 145 so far in the playoffs in 3 games. Winnipeg's got 134. There are 279 hits that have been laid in 3 hockey games.
And it's not just like, sometimes you get this, right? Like, there are certain places in basketball that they track stats differently. So whether that's steals or rebounds, whatever, they just track them a little bit differently. Same thing for tackles in the NFL. If you're anywhere around a pile, some places will just give you credit for a half tackle there. This is not that. The hits are the same way, right? There's some arenas where you're credited for more hits than others based on the official statistician there. This is every single one of those hits, they're legit hits. And it's like one guy is going through the glass. Yeah. I mean, there were like 3 or 4 last night where I felt them up in the press box. That's how imposing they are. So the Blues are finding a way to imprint their game on the Winnipeg Jets. Somebody on the text line, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. From the 314, guys, I could not believe that the Blues found a way to completely get Winnipeg off of their game. I was shocked at how out of sorts they were by the third period. That's what happened. The Blues didn't just win last night. The Jets freaked out, man. Mm-hmm. They lost their cool. And in the third period, the Blues were so far in their heads that, A, their goalie was pulled, who's the best goalie on earth right now, Connor Hellebuck. And good. B, the rest of their roster was just retaliating at every turn. And some of that is sure sending a message for game number 4. A lot of it, though, was they lost their cools. Yeah. And they had no ability to keep their heads with them. I thought that was a huge storyline from last night. The Blues were so damn good that they forced Winnipeg into a shell.
To that point, it wasn't just like, hey, they kind of beat them up for a period, and then it got to the Winnipeg Jets. I wrote this down in my notes while we were up in the press box last night. Guys, we were 7 minutes into the first period, and there was just a subtle moment that when I saw it, I was like, okay, this one is definitely going to be one where the Blues, I didn't think they were going to blow out 7-2, but I thought this is going to be a convincing win. 7 minutes into that first period, there's a play where Parayko and Scheifele get a little bit tied up. Parayko starts to skate off towards the bench, and Scheifele takes a big old swing with the stick. Doesn't swing at Parayko, but he pulls it back like he's going to go for like a huge slash on him, which would have drawn a huge penalty on him. And I heard the crowd react to it like, whoa, okay. And right there you saw 7 minutes into the hockey game, this is going to be a long night for the Winnipeg Jets.
There have been 13 game misconduct, or 10-minute misconduct so far in this series, and 8 of those 13 have gone to the Winnipeg Jets.
A lot of them last night.
And I mean, T-Bone had these numbers last night on the post-game show in terms of the special teams. The Blues are 6 for 13 on the power play, and they're 8 for 10 on the penalty kill. So this Winnipeg Jets team, like the secret to all of this is Winnipeg likes to play big and bad and tough, right? Like they love to play that style. The problem is when you play that way against them, other teams haven't done that this season because they don't want to push that team because they know that they're tough that way. Man, the Blues don't care. They'll push back, and when you push back, it's kind of like Winnipeg looked at it as, oh, well, you can't do that, and then they kind of throw their hissy fit. And to that point, we saw Logan Stanley just keep drawing stuff after the penalties, and they finally tossed him out of the game. Luke Schenn was getting really upset with Toropchenko and Pavel Buchnevich last night, took 2 penalties. it's not that they're getting these misconducts. It's they're taking all of these penalty minutes, and it's putting the Blues on the power play, and it's wiping away Winnipeg. So the style that the Blues are playing, it's forcing Winnipeg to have to reconsider how they have to play, which they've played for 82 games this season.
It's standing up to the bully. That's what the Blues are doing. They saw the bully, and in the first couple of games, they tried to stand up to him, but they couldn't quite find a way to get that punch that they needed, right? Get it into the nose. Trust me, I know all about that.
Man, that'd be a knockdown blow.
And then in Game 3, they finally found a way. We mentioned that it was the boxing metaphor last night, where, like, if you were scoring the match in this series so far, Blues have probably taken period number 1 in all 3 games. First couple of games, though, it was by decision. Like, it was a 10-9 score in the first period in each of the first 2 games. Last night was a knockdown. Blues scored an extra point there. And then in the second period, it's mostly been a draw. You could maybe make it a little bit in favor of Winnipeg. Same thing was true, honestly, last night. Second period was just like nobody really did a whole lot. There wasn't a lot of momentum in either direction. But the third period have been knockouts by the Winnipeg Jets. And last night, it was the opposite. The Blues got their knockout blow in the third period last night when Jordan Binnington made that save. That was it. It was a second period or third period for that.
That was the third period.
Third period. Jordan Binnington, the save, 10 minutes in.
Oh, that was the second period, the Perfetti one.
There you go. That was effectively when the game was over.
Yep.
Like that should have been the momentum shifter in favor of the Blue, or in favor of Winnipeg. Instead, Blues shut that down. Boom, you're good to go. The style that they're playing right now, that physical style, Alex, my biggest takeaway from last night, from this series, what they are doing is working. And that is not just a big thing for this series, regardless of what happens from here. It's a big thing in the bigger picture of, okay, our model is working. Jim Montgomery is the guy, not that we had any questions about that. This core group of players, they can play the style that wins in the postseason. Last night, Pavel Buchnevich, hot damn, dude. Yep. 1 goal in his playoff career prior to last night, gets the hat trick last night against the Winnipeg Jets. You're starting to see things that have been put in motion over the course of the year. Now they are being implemented into playoff hockey, and it's working. So that's a hell of a lot of fun to watch. It's going to be even more fun to watch as we go along here. Game number 4 on Sunday, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that coming up next. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646 is the air cover service text line. YouTube chat is off and running for you guys today at youtube.com/101 ESPN STL. Cat Dad Gamer, Taylor, Justin, iRock is over there. We've got Bazooka Tooth over there as well. Plenty to chat about today with the Blues coming up next. They won with the same formula last night, the Blues did, as the Jets utilized to win in games number 1 and 2. We'll tell you what that was next here on 101 ESPN. Hey, it's BK for my friends over at Victory Men's Health. Go ahead and give them a call today. Better yet, just go to their website, victorymenshealth.com. Book that first appointment to unlock your inner champion. When I say that, it means different things for different people. For you, maybe that means dealing with some of the unwanted weight that you've gained over the years. Finally, it is time to shed that weight. They can help you out. It's not easy to do on your own. Trust me, people have been there, done that, tried it on their own. It works a little better if you're able to get the help by the professionals. They can do that for you over at Victory Men's Health. They can also help with erectile dysfunction, low testosterone. They can help you find out exactly what you need from their supplement shop. Or maybe you just want to learn more about their red light therapy programs, vitamin infusions, cardiovascular testing. They can also do a micronutrient lab. That's something that I went through whenever I went over there. They've got it all available for you at Victory Men's Health. Super easy process. Go over to their website today, victorymenshealth.com. You could book that first appointment, and then you could check out their 4 great locations across the St. Louis area: O'Fallon, Missouri, O'Fallon, Illinois, Sunset Hills, or my personal favorite location in town and country. It's Victory Men's Health and victorymenshealth.com.
live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the E&B Granite Studios. This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Fedurko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
It's time for a Blues playoff report presented by English Sweep Fireplace and Chimney Restoration. Schedule your chimney inspection at EnglishSweep.com.
The reason we're in the playoffs is because those guys responded and took their game to another level. We felt we had to take our game in the playoffs to another level, after losing the first two games, and we did that. Now we got to keep going. You got to keep getting better in the series, and we just got to keep getting better. We know how good Winnipeg is.
That was Jim Montgomery after the game last night talking about the top line, specifically Pavel Buchnevich and Robert Thomas. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex, Monty mentioned, hey, he was asked in that one, hey, what did you think about the improvements that you saw from Buch and Thomas, the way that they've responded to the team being down 2-0? And that was really the story of last night's game. Thomas finishes with 4 points overall, all assists for him, +3 on the ice. Buch gets the hat trick, also adds another assist in there as well, +3 on the ice. Those guys looked like men possessed on the ice. They were fantastic for the Blues. The storyline early in this series, the first two games while it was up in Winnipeg, was very simple. The Jets' top players are better right now than your top players. It was basically Scheifele and Connor are beating Thomas and Buch. And last night, that flipped. Thomas and Buch didn't just outplay the top line for Winnipeg. They dominated the top line for Winnipeg. And some of that was because of the matchups, right? We saw early on the Blues were going more to Shin's line against that Scheifele line. They got a little bit more physical with him, and it paid off. It wasn't just chasing hits. They were going out there, and it was like targeted physicality for the Blues early in that game. Alex, after getting hit by the Blues just once in game number 2, Scheifele was on the receiving end of 7 hits in game 3. The Morrissey-Pionk pairing, ugly. Outshot 7-0 during their 7 minutes during 5-on-5 play. Fowler and Parayko, I mentioned Buch and Thomas, they were great. Well, Fowler and Parayko, your top pair defensively, they got the assignment of the Scheifele line for the most part. Played more than 8 minutes against them at 5-on-5, allowed a total of 2 shots in that game against the Scheifele line. The series was pretty easy to explain early on in the first couple of games, and honestly, it was pretty easy to explain last night. The best players for the Jets were outplaying the best players for the Blues, and last night, that flipped in favor of the Blues. That has to continue if the Blues are going to get back into the series.
Yeah, the one thing that has remained very consistent is the Blues' top players, they've found offensive opportunities. I mean, game number 1, Robert Thomas picks up a goal. Jordan Kyrou scores. Game number 2, they were creating opportunities. They just weren't following through. The difference in game 3 versus games 1 and games number 2 is Scheifele and Connor in games 1 and 2 had way too much time and space. They'd get into the zone, they could circle off somebody, and the Blues were playing in the box. They weren't letting anything in the box, but they would let them do stuff from the outside. The problem with that is that's how you lose guys in the scramble of offensive zone time, and that's how Kyle Connor can get to the front of the net and get those goals that he scored. What they did do in this game number 3 is there was 0 time and space for those guys. The moment they touched the puck, there were 2 guys on it. They were creating chaos for them. So Winnipeg had to adjust as that game went on. They had to go back to the dump the puck in and go chase after it rather than skate in and kind of circle back and create some offensive opportunities. It's just about creating chaos for those guys. And the best way to play some of the best players on the other side is to keep them in uncomfortable situations, meaning the puck in the other side, in the defensive end. There was a couple of shifts in the first period that Connor and Scheifele's line, the entire shift was spent in the defensive zone. And by the time that it came out, they had to go off for a line change, or they'd get hemmed into the zone for more offensive zone time. And that comes down to your best players taking advantage of it. I loved the way that Montgomery handled that, to where you started off with the physicality on that line, made them think twice about where the puck was going. And then once you start to get that doubt in there, that's when you pounce on the Thomas and Buchnevich line. And they were the best line last night without question. Buchnevich looked like a man possessed. Thomas was all over the place. but give credit to Jimmy Snuggerud as well. He was picking pucks out of guys' pockets. He was keeping plays alive in the offensive zone. And those three were playing the cycle game against the Winnipeg Jets.
And to that point with Snuggerud knows he's not built right now for playoff hockey. And what I mean by that is just by his size, right? He's tiny at this point in his career. He's going to bulk up as he gets older, so he's got to play with his hockey IQ right now, and he did that a lot last night, and he was very good, to your point, of picking pockets, or when the puck was on his stick, putting it in safe spots before someone could come and crush him. I was very impressed by his game last night, even though he only had 1 assist at 5-on-5. I mean, that line had 6 points at 5-on-5 last night. They were unbelievable, and if you're going to beat the Winnipeg Jets just on a game-by-game basis and then also in the series, your top line, your best players have to be the guys that end up being the best players on the ice, and that's what they were last night.
So, Alex, this morning, I was listening to the 32 Thoughts podcast with Elliot Friedman. I wanted to hear what their breakdown was. I always like hearing the national perspective, guys that aren't around this every single day, on what happened the night before locally, because we certainly have our take. What is their take? Here's what Elliot Friedman had to say.
I will say this. There were moments it could have gone sideways for the Blues. At the end of the first period, Connor got a great chance on a rush with Scheifele, and Binnington makes a huge pad save, very calm pad save, too. There was the disputed goal, the disallowed goal, which we'll get to in a second, but they were relentless. Even though there were moments that the Jets pushed back, the Blues, they never let up. They kept coming. I think St. Louis, this is their W. They earned it. They took charge. They never let up. They pounded them into the ground. And that's what you have to do, especially when you're down in a series and you're at home.
I love that he mentioned the save by Benner at the end of the first period. That was a big moment. The bigger one to me, and I think for everybody watching at home, was midway through the second period, Binnington's save on Perfetti. Jets thought that was a goal. I personally, watching live, thought, this might be a goal. I don't know that you could have overturned it, though. I don't know that it was definitive. To me, if it was called a goal on the ice, I think you have to stick with it. Same thing, vice versa, and that's what ultimately they went with. That was the puck luck that had gone against the Blues in the first 2 games, reversing course. Now, the Blues made some of that luck. It was a great save by Benner to just even get himself into a position to potentially have that go in the Blues' direction. Yeah. But the Jets made their puck luck in the first couple of games. Blues made theirs last night. That, to me, was a big storyline, was the top players, they got you going early on. And then it became about, all right, we've got to withstand. We've got to stand tall here. Make sure that they are not able to gain momentum. Up 3-0, let's keep it here. Let's not allow them to get to 3-1. Benner was the guy that allowed that to happen. Eventually, they do make it 3-1, and then immediately there's that Thomas takeaway in the offensive zone where Hellebuck's behind the net, controller stops, Thomas takes it away, gets it over to Buchnevich, and then boom, goal right there to push it to 4-1. That's where the game effectively ended, in my opinion.
Yeah, that was 52 seconds after they made it 3-1, and the Blues respond, which that's typically how you kill the momentum. I'll give you another moment that felt like the game was over. And maybe not over, but it was the difference maker in that series, because to Friedman's point, it's why we're all on board with Jordan Binnington. You've got to have a guy who can stop the shift of the game. And that save that he had on Kyle Connor did it. Connor Hellebuck missed that opportunity on Cam Fowler, because Cam Fowler gets that breakaway. He scores that goal to make it 3-0. That's when they start to get into their own heads. That's the moment you need your goalie to make a save. And so that's the difference in this series, in my opinion. It's why I was thinking, it's like, look, you could beat this Winnipeg Jets team, because Connor Hellebuck is not he's not Binnington in terms of he's a big game performer to come up with those big saves. That Cam Fowler goal was the exact same scenario as Kyle Connor's goal in the first period.
Yep.
Binnington makes the save to keep it 3-0. Hellebuck makes that save. It's a 2-0 hockey game, and Winnipeg's thinking, okay, we're still in this thing. So there were a lot of moments that this game could have gone sideways for the Blues, but think about it. Every time Winnipeg started a push, Binnington came up with a big save, and that's the type of goalie you need in the playoffs.
Jim Montgomery said it best after the game, quote, "We have a great, proven playoff goalie. He makes timely saves," end quote. That's what he does. It's not what Connor Hellebuck does. In Connor Hellebuck's last 6 playoff games on the road, 28 goals allowed, 85% save percentage. There is something in his head. There is something that is a mental block that does not allow him to perform the same way on the road as he does at home, especially in the playoffs.
I will take a page out of BK's book and give fans credit, because you could tell the Connor chants by the second period, dude, they were getting to him. they were getting to him. You'd see him take a couple of extra twirls out of his net between the whistles in that third period. Once they started to score a little bit more, yeah, he was broke. So I'll give fans credit there.
He's Alex. That's T-Bone. I'm BK. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. We'll get to Ask Us Anything Sports or otherwise in about 15 minutes. Brad Thompson, Cardinals analyst for FanDuel Sports Midwest, joins us next to help us preview the Cardinals versus the Brewers series here on BK and Ferrario.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Last night, the Blues won Game 3 at home. They've got 2 days off before Game 4 on Sunday. Pre-game show right here on 101 ESPN will be at 11 o'clock, and then puck drop will be at 12. As for the Cardinals, they're opening a series against the Milwaukee Brewers tonight. First pitch is at 7:15. Tomorrow, the Battlehawks will be welcoming in the Michigan Panthers at 6. And then on Sunday, City SC is taking on LAFC at 6 as well. I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. We're broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. E&B Granite, Bernie Fedorko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. We're hanging with Brad Thompson on 101 ESPN.
Hanging breaking ball from Brad Thompson. And boy, does he get a swing on it. Lift and separate and see you later.
Hanging with BT is sponsored by St. Luke's, ranked top 2% in the nation for cardiac surgery by Health Grades. Visit stlukes-stl.com.
BT's about to do, because he's a pro and he knows he's going to deflect. I could ask BT about the Cardinals, who have lost 6 of their last 7 games. They're coming home. Tough series here against the Milwaukee Brewers. And we could get into it. We could talk about the bullpen. We could talk about some of the struggling offense. But instead, what I'm going to do for Brad Thompson, Cardinals analyst for FanDuel Sports Midwest, who joins us now via the Callier and Thompson hotline, I'm going to start where I know he wants to begin, which is with the St. Louis Blues. How about that win last night, BT?
God, you read my mind. BK, my goodness. That is exactly where I was going to take things right off the bat anyhow, no matter what you wanted to talk about. That was fun. That was a lot of fun. Were you guys in the building?
We were. The 3 of us were able to be there. We did pregame together. We did postgame together. That's about as much energy as I've heard in that arena in, I don't know. Alex mentioned since the 2019 run. I think 2022 against the Minnesota Wild, there were a couple of games that were similar, but that's about as good as it's been in that arena in the last 5 years.
Contreras was getting into it, too. That man was waving the towel behind the Winnipeg Jets bench.
We got to get him some better tickets next time, though.
Get him going. Well, you know, that's on him. He makes way more money than I do. He can sit wherever he wants. There is no atmosphere like that. Like playoffs in general, and like regardless of the sport, for any young player that gets a taste of that for the first time, I got very spoiled. Like my first year, 2005, I jumped into a really good team and went on a postseason run. Once you feel that, you never want anything else in your career, and you will strive for that forever. Like, I'm so excited for the young guys on the Blues that got a taste of what this feels like, and hopefully a long, deep run into the postseason, and maybe another parade at the end of the day. But there is nothing like that.
BT, what do you learn about yourself as an athlete when you go through a postseason run like that?
You learn if you shrink under the lights and the scrutiny. I still remember the first strike that I threw in the postseason was at Busch Stadium, at Busch 2, against the Padres, and everybody started cheering. I was like, it wasn't a Bronx cheer, like oh, God, you finally threw a strike, good for you. It was like, oh, my God, everybody is in on every single pitch. And it was amazing. And there are some guys that like really like that, and it feeds them. And then there are other guys that are scared to make a mistake in moments like that. And I know you guys have seen it in various sports where the old, to use a Duncanism, the tight cheeks come in, right? So I think that you learn a lot about how you react to situations, and everything is heightened, every pitch, every at-bat, and every media scrum afterwards. Like, there's just far more eyes on you. You got to be so mentally strong in the postseason. I think that's where having great leaders, great veterans, which I know the Blues have, like that's where you're really leaning on those guys, their experiences to help you. And they teach you along the way, hey, this is what to expect, this is what it's going to feel like. It's a little different when you're going through it yourself, but you have to be so mentally tough during a run like that.
All right, BT, I'll be the bad guy like I am at home when my daughter has a package of gummies and I have to take it away, and I'm the bad guy. We got to talk Cardinals. It's pretty obvious what the issues are, the bullpen right now. The bigger question is, how does this team right that ship with the bullpen struggles?
There's not an answer to that. There's not an easy like, well, you bring up blah 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 blah, and then he fixes it. There is no blah 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 that fixes it. Like, it has to be guys that continue to grow at this level, and they're going to go through their hardships. Like, the real answer, if the question is like, how do they start winning more games right now and at 10 and 15, like, you'd like to win more games. Obviously, we still know this year is about development, but you want to win more games. The answer to that is take less pressure off of your bullpen, and you need to score more runs. And your big guys got to be big guys. Arenado's got to Arenado. Contreras is starting to get hot. You need Burleson to start hitting for some power. Like, that's what takes a lot of pressure off of your bullpen, gives you a little bit leeway, and you start winning some more games because of your offense, and you allow some different guys to round into shape. Like, that's the big thing. But right now, I mean, it's very evident, and he's talked about it. The organization has talked about it. Like, Ryan Fernandez is not what he was last year. The stuff looks a little different. They're tweaking it every single day. It's so hard to learn in big league games, but we've given runway to position players. Ollie talked about this the other day. They're giving runway to some guys in the bullpen. And, like, you can yell at your TV all you want and get all the tweets. I get all those and the direct messages. What an idiot. He's putting in Fernandez in this spot. Haven't you seen this? What would you do? Like, what are you going to do in that spot? You don't have Maton. You're not going to use Helsley. Who are you going to in that spot, right? So it comes down to individuals getting better at this level, and it's so fun to be around this team and be around the coaching staff and, like, seeing how they dig in with their players. Nobody is just, like, flipping a coin and hoping for something good to happen. Every single day there's, like, diligent work going on with these guys to individualize, to, like, tweak things, and hopefully, like, these small tweaks turn into big results. So that part of it's fun to watch, but it's not fun when those guys go out there and struggle. So as much as, a fan base, you get frustrated with it, imagine being those guys. And the answer is not in AAA. They don't have a guy right now that's going to come in and save the day. They don't have anybody that's able to take the ball 3 out of 4 days. That guy's just not there. So that's an issue as well.
BT, as a follow-up to that, Brad Thompson is our guest here on 101 ESPN. When you talk with the staff, what do they view as the reason to keep Ryan Fernandez at the major league level to figure this stuff out instead of going down to AAA? Because I'm with you. Like, I don't think calling up Riley O'Brien, like, fixes their bullpen problems, right? That's not the thing. I think for a lot of fans, though, they see Ryan Fernandez and immediately assume what happened the other day is going to happen again. Sure. And so maybe the pressure of going down to AAA will alleviate some of that. He can work on stuff the way that Chris Roycroft did, and then maybe that ends up with a better version of Fernandez 2 weeks from now. So from their perspective, why are they going about it this way?
Yeah, which could very well happen at some point, right? Like, there is a limit to the amount of struggles and how long you let somebody do that, because you have to worry about the mental well-being of a player too. So if it gets to that point, I think that you do end up having to make some sort of a move. But right now, and Riley O'Brien's a good example, and he's a great arm, like big-time arm. I don't know if he can take the ball back-to-back days or 3 out of 4 or, 2 out of 3 like you're seeing different guys do. I think that's been an issue in the past. And so I just think that you want to give them as much rope to succeed here as you can. There's going to be a limit, and in their conversation, I'm not privy to all of, like, the internal everything, but I know that they've seen it happen with Ryan Fernandez. We saw it last year, and we know volatility is in a bullpen. We've seen it with JoJo. Like, these guys are good. They're not hurt. They're healthy. So trying to make those tweaks and trying to give them as much rope as you possibly can in a season, which, again, it is about development. It is about the future. Who's going to be a part of it? That's what this season is about. We can get mad about the wins and losses. I want to win every game. And these guys want to win every game. They fight their asses off to win every game, but you're not going to. Not with the way that you're currently constructed. So you got to figure out who is in for the future, and I think that this is the best proving ground to find out who it is.
BT, on the offensive side, you mentioned, trying to score more runs to not put as much pressure on that bullpen. And everybody goes through slumps at some point when you're an offensive player. Victor Scott went through it a little bit. Alec Burleson's going through it. How beneficial this season is it going to be for guys like a Jordan Walker who's in a slump or an Alec Burleson who's gone through it to find a way to dig themselves out of it and get back into the consistent confidence side?
That's everything, right? Adjustments at this level are everything. And guys that are able to make it, and we talk about adjustments for both position players and pitchers. Andre Palante, I think we talked about this last week. The adjustments that he made a couple of starts ago. We've seen Matthew Liberatore, who's throwing tonight, make big adjustments, and just his confidence is there. But that is this level. Like, if you, as a hitter, if you continue to get attacked the same way and you don't make adjustments, that ends up being on you. And at some point, somebody's going to come take your job. Like, that's just kind of how it is. So for these guys, having that runway this year and realizing there will be ebbs and flows, and you'll have good times, you'll have times where you feel great, you'll have times that you have to battle. Like, that is so great to learn that about yourself. And then the ones that end up being very good make adjustments quicker. They make them at bat to at bat instead of game to game or week to week. And I hope that's what we end up seeing for some of these young players. I think that you talk about guys that have made adjustments. Victor Scott II, to me, is a perfect example of this. His swing is different than it was a year ago. It's short. It's barrel to the ball. He's not trying to lift, although he can still get the ball in the air, and he can, he's got a little bit of pop in there, but he's not trying to do that. That's a guy that knows himself really well. So I felt about Mason Wynn a year ago. Instead of trying to hit a double or a home run every time, he went bat to ball, and he had a lot of success for most of the season. So it's about adjusting and learning yourself. You're right. Walk, I think, is going through a little bit of that now. I think he's reverting back into some of his old habits, but then you see him, especially early at bats, he gets dialed back in. He's in his legs more. He's, closed off a little bit more. And then at bat number 3 starts to open a little bit. It's a constant battle and a constant fight, but a fun one to watch these guys figure it out.
Cardinals back in action this weekend. It'll be against the Milwaukee Brewers, who are coming to town. BT, last year, it was early in the season, roughly the same time when the Milwaukee Brewers came in. Cardinals were coming off of a road trip, and the Cardinals were 9-10 at the time. Brewers swept that series, and that was when my co-host Alex Ferrario said, I'm out. I don't need to watch anything more. Cardinals are done for the year. The hope is that doesn't happen this weekend. Cardinals back in action against the Brewers. BT will be on the call for FanDuel Sports Midwest. Hopefully this one goes a little better. Libby, Gray, and Fetty, certainly the 3 guys you would want on the mound out there for the Cardinals this weekend. Enjoy the series, my friend. We'll talk with you again next week.
Hey, you guys have a great week. You're going to keep watching no matter what. Stop it, Alex. You're going to be there. By the way, tonight you're going to get Chip and Sween Dog. Mark Sweeney's going to be in the booth. I'll be doing some pre and post. Sweeney's awesome, so it's going to be a great weekend.
I like to hear that one. BT in the studio. That brings a little extra oomph before first pitch.
Oh, I mean, you might want to tune in for this. You never know what you might see.
Amen
BT, appreciate the time as always, man. Be good.
All right. See you guys.
See you, buddy.
That's Brad Thompson joining us here on 101 ESPN, as he does each and every Friday on BK and Ferrario. Big series, man. Last year, I say that half jokingly, but also kind of serious. Like, the Brewers have been the team over the last couple of years that it feels like you play them, you realize they're better than you, and then as a fan, even if the team doesn't feel this way, as a fan, you watch it, and you're like, man, they're just us, but better. They're a better version of what we want to be, what we aspire to be right now. They're better at developing pitching. They're better at developing a potential star player at the major league level. They make the aggressive moves early in the season. They made the aggressive move a few years ago for Willy Adames when the Cardinals were flailing in all directions to try to get their pitching stabilized. So this is a big series this weekend against Milwaukee.
I'd argue it's a big next 2 series. I mean, obviously Milwaukee's this weekend, but Milwaukee and Cincinnati, because if you don't win either of these series, I mean, you could be talking about, 2 games below those 2 teams that are already sitting ahead of you. And I know it's early, but I mean, the NL Central, that's how you're going to make a path to the playoffs. And if you can't win versus Milwaukee and Cincinnati, just like you struggled against Pittsburgh early on, that's problematic.
He's Alex's T-Bone. I'm BK. If you missed any of our conversation with Brad Thompson, be sure to check it out on the podcast page after the show today. 101ESPN.com or the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. That podcast page is sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
Coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything, sports or otherwise, here on BK and Ferrario.
Live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the E&B Granite Studios, this is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. You've got questions, we may have the answers. Maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's Questions and Answers on 101 ESPN.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. In 10 minutes, we'll talk to Mike McKenna, former NHL goalie. I really want to get his perspective on these first three games, both with Jordan Binnington, what we've seen from him, and also Connor Hellebuck, and what's going on with him on the road in the playoffs. I mentioned in the last a couple of segments ago, Alex, 28 goals allowed in his last 6 playoff games. That dates back to 2023, the last 6 playoff games that he's played on the road. He's been terrible in them. I want to get to that with Mike McKenna here in about 10 minutes. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything, sports or otherwise. Guys from the 417, after last night, do we need to see John Gruden at a Blues game soon?
He'll be there at some point. If this gets to a game 6, I could see John Gruden being in attendance for one of those home games.
Absolutely, we need John Gruden there. The more celebrities, the better. By the way, TLR being there last night when they showed him, that arena just erupted.
Yes.
Dude, he started to stand up. I looked at Marsha and go, please tell me he's going to chug a beer. How awesome would that have been?
No, that was Steve Ott's son that chugged one out of a hockey stick boot.
Was that who that
Is
was?
that who that was?
That's Maverick. Yeah, that's
Okay.
Steve Ott's son, who always takes his shirt off at games and twirls it. I love the fact that Steve's wife had that hockey boot ready to go, and he chugged whatever was in there. That was awesome.
That was amazing. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything. Guys, foreshadowing a little bit, what do you think about the bottom 6 center position? Dvorsky most likely coming in. That leaves one spot for either Sonny or Foxa. Who do you think stays? I love Foxa and what he's brought so far this year.
I think Fox is going to stay. It's just going to be a matter of how much money. Sonny's under contract, and that's what they're going to do. I mean, they'll have 2 guys that they can use next year. I'm not so sure Dvorsky's going to start the season with the Blues. I do wonder, the center position takes a little bit more time to mold than what a winger does, like a Jimmy Snuggerud or a Zach Bolduc. I could see if he makes the club out of training camp next year that he plays wing and kind of shifts over to the center position sometimes with Sundqvist. But, I mean, my guess is your 4th line is going to be your 4th line next year as long as Fox is not asking for too much money.
Yeah, I would think you would want to bring back Foxa because A, he's played well, and B, I just don't know if you can expect Sonny to hold up for a full 82-game regular season again.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you have those 2 back, you can slow play Dvorsky, whether that is he starts on a wing like you just said, or he starts back down in the minor leagues. And then when he is ready, he can move into the lineup, and then you can pull one of Sonny or Foxa.
I would not be surprised if they decided to move on from Foxa. And that's not anything that's related to, like, Foxa has had an issue with the Blues or anything like that, but eventually you have to allow what the Blues or what the Cardinals are doing right now with some of their young players, give Dvorsky that chance. I do wonder if that's something that the Blues decide to do, because there's only so many roster spots that you can be able to use next year.
Yeah, but we know how useful having a 4th line is that's consistent, and Jim Montgomery loves having a line that he can go to, and I don't think you want to break that chemistry up next year, whereas you can find a spot for Dvorsky as the season moves along. I don't think Matthew Joseph will be here next year. I think they'll probably try and move on from that contract. But yeah,
it's a $3 million cap hit. We saw last year what it takes to trade those guys. I mean, are you trading a 2nd-round pick to move Matthew Joseph?
No, but I mean, what did the Senators trade to get rid of Matthew Joseph?
I think it was like a 4th, but I think it would probably be in a similar spot to what the Blues were with Kevin Hayes. No, it's basically the same money.
I think you paid so much because the cap was still stagnant and there wasn't a lot of space to wiggle. I mean, the cap's moving up, and
I'm just not attaching a draft pick to get rid of Matthew Joseph to retain Radek Fox's services.
Very possible, too, though, that he could go through waivers and be in the minor leagues. It's very possible that they could just use him as a 13th forward, but I don't think
you don't have a 2nd, 3rd, or 4th round pick this year. You don't have a 2nd-round pick in 26 or 27 either.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to need to put a 2nd-round pick on Joseph. I don't think Joseph is as distressed of an asset as what Kevin Hayes was.
Yeah, you traded a 3rd-round pick in this upcoming draft, the Ottawa Senators did, to get rid of Matthew Joseph, but that's because they needed the cap space and other teams didn't have cap space.
I'm not trading I'm not trading a pick with Joseph to get rid of him from this roster to retain Radek Fox. So when I have a fourth-line center in Oscar Sundqvist.
I think Radek Fox is way more useful for your team, though, than a fourth or a fifth-round draft pick if Matthew Joseph is a guy that you want to try and find that cap space with. I mean, we know how long it's been since trying to find a fourth line that you can use. Look at what they've rotated from the moment Steen and Barbashev and Sundqvist were broken up to what it's been now. So
it's really a question of, do they think Dalibor Dvorsky is ready or not?
Yeah.
And if they do, then I think you have to put Oscar Sundqvist on that fourth line, and then it becomes the extra there is Alexander Texier. And again, this goes to roster spots. Like, there's just only so many people that you can carry on the roster over the course of the full season. So Sonny drops down, Dvorsky's the third line center, Texier is your extra, and boom, you make it work that way. If you bring back Fox, it makes me believe that they don't think that Dalibor Dvorsky is ready for that third-line center role, which might be possible.
Yeah, maybe.
Very possible. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything from the 314. Alex, I think this is a simple question for you. Do you think Suter is probably gone next year after last night?
Yeah. From what I understand, I think Suter was very unhappy about the decision to be a healthy scratch, which, I mean, I can understand if you're Ryan Suter. Like, you've never been a healthy scratch in your career, if I'm not mistaken, and he wasn't a playoff game like that. But, I mean, those are the tough decisions that Jim Montgomery and company were going to have to make, and I almost guarantee you Doug Armstrong made it pretty clear to Suter when he signed a contract with the Blues, like, hey, this is a possibility, and Tucker has earned the right to stay in the lineup. But, yeah, I would imagine Suter's not very pleased with the decisions from last night.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel.
Plus, I mean, he kind of saw the writing on the wall if you're him, right? Like, yes. Tucker is going to be taking your spot at some point. He's a left-handed defenseman, third-pair defenseman who brings physicality, and that's the one thing that, look, Suter's a dude that plays very nasty, but playing nasty versus playing physical like Tyler Tucker does is different. And Tyler Tucker is always ready to shoot the puck, which I think is something that Jim Montgomery really wanted in the lineup.
All right, last one here. Guys, who do you think takes Shedeur Sanders in the second round today? Shedeur Sanders, one of the biggest surprises, not selected in the first round yesterday. The Browns are the Vegas odds favorite to select him. They have the first pick in the second round. They also have the fourth pick in the second round. Between them is the Texans and the Titans, and not exactly teams that are going to take Shedeur. So who do you guys think will end up selecting Shedeur Sanders?
I think it'll be the Browns. Unless they trade one of those picks out because they don't want him. I think it'll be the Browns, though. Get your quarterback in the second round.
I think I'm going to go Browns as well. I was thinking maybe Steelers, they don't have a second-round pick, though, and he's not falling to the third, and I don't know if they're going to trade up to go get him. So I'll say Browns, but I don't feel confident in that answer.
I don't either.
Just to be different, a couple of teams that I would keep an eye on in the second round if there's going to be a trade up, maybe even to the Texans at 34. Like, Browns take somebody else at 33. Texans trade out. Shedeur goes 34 overall. If that were to take place, teams I would keep an eye on there. One, the Indianapolis Colts. I don't know what their plan is with Anthony Richardson, but it's not as if they have been saying all offseason that they're super excited about going into the year with him as their starting quarterback. The other would be the LA Rams. They pick at 46th overall. They got an extra first-round pick in next year's draft to be able to move down from the first round. They're year to year right now with Matt Stafford. And if they decide we're super interested in Shedeur Sanders, that's a team that I could see getting aggressive and moving up for him in the second round. Don't know how likely it is. I think you guys are right. It's probably the Browns, but in the event that it's not, those are a couple of teams that I would monitor. Coming up next, Mike McKenna, former NHL goalie, joins us here on BK and Ferrario.
BK and Ferrario are broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. We're going between the pipes with former NHL goaltender Mike McKenna.
Between the Pipes is refreshed by Macadoodle Spirits, fine wine, beer, and cigars. Now open in Darden Prairie.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Happy to be joined in studio today by the one and only, the former NHL goalie, Mike McKenna. He joins us each and every week on behalf of Macadoodles. Mike, great to have you in studio, man. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm sleepy. I suspect, like everyone else listening, being up late to watch the Blues play and then having a 7 o'clock event on the ice this morning for ourselves at Kirkwood was it was an early wake-up, but a lot of excitement in the Friday morning hockey locker room over at Kirkwood today, for good reason, man. That was a shellacking last night.
I would imagine so, and especially when you're back on home ice. And, Mike, we've talked a lot about it, where things are at with the Blues and being back on home ice. Am I not on camera?
No, you're not.
Okay, good to know. Let's adjust the camera on that one then. Being back on home ice, it's been an area that they've had success with since the Four Nations break and how well they've played. And it really felt like it was an advantage last night because Winnipeg looked like they were lost in the first 5 minutes.
It was. It was immediate, and that's exactly what the Blues needed. Now, I think their starts have been pretty good for the whole series, and honestly, I think the Blues have played good hockey. Game 2, it looked like to me they ran out of gas. You know, you get about 18 minutes left in the third, and I looked at it and I went, ugh, they're struggling right now. You could just sense it. And that energy was back. A couple days off, coming home, also having some players in your lineup who are definitely battling some things that are nagging, for sure. You can tell. I mean, there's no way Colton Parayko's at absolutely 100%. Right. But he looked a lot better in Game 3, boy. He looked really good, you know. And, you know, even it's kind of the individual performances, right? It's like sometimes it's not just home ice. The crowd absolutely played a part. They're phenomenal in St. Louis, always have been. But some of the players on the Blues team that just hadn't quite got over the hump in this series really had great nights. Like Buchnevich is somebody who's kind of your canary in the coal mine. Like when he's going, the Blues are really good. Like he can, because his output can go up and down, man. Yeah. It really can. And when he's going, dude, watch out. And I mean, I guess Fowler had 5 points, so that's all right.
Not a big deal.
Yeah.
One away from Paul Coffey's record in the playoffs. Who's Paul Coffey, am I right?
Yeah, I tell you what, though, I was really happy to see they went with 6D. I hate 11-7. I know every player doesn't like 11-7. I understand why in Game 2 they went that direction. Mm-hmm. My dad actually floated it to me. He's like, think they'd ever do that for Game 2? I was like, no way. Well, old TM McKenna's way smarter and seeing a lot more than
Father knows best.
Yeah, so I just think it helps. I think the Blues are at their best when they have 4 lines going and when the minutes are distributed pretty well. And I guess it's been weird because of the penalties, but they did use all 4 lines last night. They all played a part, and it was throughout the lineup.
They looked really good, and I feel like this series, I mean, there's a million different ways that we can go with this, but the first 2 games were basically determined by their top line was better than your top line. And then last night it was the Blues' top line. You mentioned Buchnevich. Thomas also had a really good game. The forecheck, getting in on that, especially on the Hellebuck turnover in their own zone, getting that over to Buch. That was a huge moment in the game. The D-men, though, you mentioned Cam Fowler, the points that he was able to produce last night. This is something T-Bone talks a lot about on our post-game show last night. I want to give him credit for it. They got activated so much more offensively last night, whether it was shots from the point or playing down low. It was everything from them. What did you see from the Blues defensemen and how they activated them?
I saw them look like a team that won 12 straight games. I also saw somebody that was an unsung hero in last night's game, and it was a guy between the pipes. And I'm not talking about making saves in Jordan Binnington. Winnipeg was really reckless in how they dumped the puck into the offensive zone. So Binnington handled it a ton last night, and he had time and space to do it. So that means 2 things. It means that the forwards are doing a good job in the neutral zone for the Blues of holding up the Winnipeg players. So they're giving Binner some time with the puck. It's letting him turn up ice and see his best option. What that's doing is putting the D in a position where their toes are up ice. They're already starting to move. Benner's putting it on their blade, and they're going the other way. So I think that it was really the initial pressure, the downstream effect of the neutral zone for the Blues being really good and holding up players and giving the D and Benner time to work it out amongst themselves to get going made a big difference. And it allowed them to get going. And I think there was an emphasis on it. Like, hey, guys, this is what got us here. Let's go. Like, we don't need to sit back. Again, I thought Parayko looked like he was moving a lot better in Game 3. He had the big stride. I mean, that one-timer wasn't bad either.
No,
it was
amazing. Broke his stick on the one, and I'm like, damn it, Parayko, that one was going in.
So yeah, man, I think really the D and the goalies were in sync, and the neutral zone just was really tight for the Blues and allowed it to get going.
To that point, Mike, of Binnington playing the puck, that's what won them the series against Minnesota the last time they were in the playoffs. They made that decision to go from Husso to Binnington, and he plays the puck. And you saw the opposite effect of it. Connor Hellebuyck is not the same puck handler behind the net, and the Blues were able to pick it off as he got a little bit of panic mode behind his own net.
I said it right away. I go, man, he's never been a very good puck handler.
No.
He's an adequate puck handler. Like in today's game, every goalie has to be able to make a 15 or 20-foot pass routinely on the blade. But he's never felt comfortable. You know, when you watch Joel Hofer and Jordan Binnington and other great puck handlers in the league, they get out and they're excited to have the puck on their blade, right? They turn their feet, they're looking up, they can't wait to sauce a puck. Like, you know, I'm getting giddy talking about it because I liked handling the puck as much as I like making saves. You know, so we're so spoiled here with two guys that are really good at it.
Just quick follow-up on that. I did want to ask you because I heard on the broadcast the other night, this was when they were on ESPN and Kevin Weeks was on the call. He said Jordan Binnington is an elite puck handler in net, and they asked him a follow-up. They're like, what do you mean when you say elite? He said, best in the game right now. Yeah. One of the best I've ever seen. What do you see from him that allows him to be in that category?
Well, again, he has an awareness with the puck and a desire to have the puck. So he's aggressive to get out to it, and he also plays within a system that's now been built around him. The Blues know what he can do with the puck. The system that the Blues have for puck handling with their D has a lineage back to Jake Allen. And, I mean, myself and Jake in Peoria together and us crafting a system that we liked and Jake bringing it here and having somebody like David Alexander as your goalie coach who's actively encouraging and practicing these things. And the players know to look for it now. So it's not just that he can shoot the puck hard. He's a really aware player. His head's up, his toes are up ice. He makes simple plays when he needs to. He doesn't overhandle it unless he has to. And it helps that Hofer can do it just as well.
Yeah.
So it lets the D know whoever's in goal, they can play the same way.
Yeah.
That's not always the case.
It's the same play. So let's go to the other goaltender because he's been the one, for me, Mike, going into the series, I'm like, look, I understand Hellebuyck, potential MVP of the league with the best goaltender, but he's not a playoff performer, or at least has not been over these last couple of years. It feels like glove side is his weakness right now, and it also looks like he is shrinking in net because he's losing his confidence.
He's always been susceptible to high glove side. You know, he played a year in St. John's, Newfoundland, which is one hell of a
flashback.
Place, fellas. And I can remember that season because I was in Portland and we played them often. And he reads the play so well. He's very steady in his mind and his skates, but his hands are not the most active, and they tend to get low. And when you get clean chances on Hellebuyck, that's your chance to take advantage of that. And the Blues have had more of that. They had more last night. Screenshots are another area for that. When you tend to drop and block, you lose that high coverage. And like you alluded to, Alex, like Hellebuyck now with a screen chance has occasion sagged back to his goal line, lost his angle. Like the Blues have thrown the puck into a lot of open net when it goes in. And that tells me that he's got a nervousness in the back of his head, that you've got Robert Thomas who can sift a puck as well as anybody in the game. And you've got two lines of the Blues that have been doing it. I think Hellebuyck will react to that, but high glove, they're definitely targeting it. They know if there's any traffic, get that puck in the air.
I would think people know that. Like, players know that during the regular season. And he had a .920 regular season save percentage each of the last 3 years. And then in the playoffs over the last three postseasons, it's an .870 save percentage for Connor Hellebuyck. So, in your mind, why is that being exploited in the playoffs and in the regular season? He's the best goalie in the world.
It's easy to put up good numbers when you're only playing when you're playing the whole league versus half the league, and that's really what's amazing is somebody like Andrei Vasilevsky who just bangs out numbers like crazy, and you've seen that progression even with Bobrovsky now. He's kind of gotten to that point. I really don't see anything glaring with Hellebuck other than he's not an overly mobile or an overly active person, like in terms of how he can't make saves on the backside. Jordan Binnington can, because Binnington has he's got a springiness to him and an explosiveness. It's the word I was searching for. And
springiness, nailed it.
And explosiveness that Hellebuck does not have. He is one of the smartest goalies in the game. He thinks the game. He's a Marty Brodeur goalie where he just knows what's happening. But when you get to the point now where you've got the best teams in the league that are desperate, that are playing hungry, you don't get those same magical saves. There's a reason why you haven't seen as many highlight reel saves over the last 3 years from Connor Hellebuck as you have seen other goaltenders.
And head games are real for a goaltender, Mike, from somebody who has lived this life.
Yeah, they can be. And it kind of turns into a boogeyman situation where you just feel like, I just can't win in playoffs. Like, I went through that hard. I got pulled in 4 straight games. I don't like to admit that, but it was between 2 years, like it was.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I don't know if I'm ever going to get over this. And I finally cracked the code and had we lost. It was a 5-game playoff series against Hershey in the American League, but I played really well and I knew it. And I was like, man, I can do this finally. And then the next 2 years, we went on to the finals 2 years in a row and carried the mail. So I think it goes both ways, but Hellebuck's a guy that usually doesn't phase, man. He's a really mentally strong goalie, but right now he looks rattled.
So that's what I wanted to ask you about, because it sounds like what you're describing with Connor Hellebuck. I don't think I've heard this elsewhere. This is really fascinating. You're describing Hellebuck the way that a lot of people would describe, like, a regular season innings eater in Major League Baseball that goes out there in every season. He's going to have 205 innings pitched for your team. He's going to have a sub-3 ERA. He might be one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball that season. But he doesn't have great stuff. You're not totally sure how he's going about it. And then he gets to the postseason and goes against these great offenses. And because he doesn't have swing and miss stuff the same way, he gets lit up in the playoffs. And so he ends up being viewed as really nice pitcher. Not sure he's a number 1 guy in the playoffs. Is that what you're describing as Connor Hellebuck?
I'd like to see it change for him, but I do think there's an element of that. And it's team-based too, guys. We're focusing on one person. But Winnipeg's not the same when they get out of town. I'm telling you, Winnipeg's just as much as that whiteout crowd and how cool it looked and everything else. You still got to go back to Winnipeg, right?
But you know what the crazy part too is, Mike? Even in Winnipeg, when the Blues scored, that place was silent. Yeah. That place was, you could hear a pin drop there. It's when they scored, that's when they got loud and wild.
Yeah, and that wasn't Enterprise Center.
Yeah.
Enterprise Center was I wasn't there last night.
It was amazing.
I heard it was a zoo. We had a phenomenal event last night at McAdoo's, and we were listening in the background.
Also a zoo,
Tequila event, and then we went over to went to a place called Hattrick's over off of Bryan Road. Never been in there before. A bunch of hockey stuff. It was a cool little bar, and watched it with some friends.
We're going to have to go back there on Sunday now, Mike.
Yeah, apparently so. But, it's. I think the fans make a big difference. Yeah, they really do. And I love that the Blues are conscious of that, and they let them know it in their interviews. I love that.
Yeah.
Last thing that I wanted to get to, we'll get you out of here and hear all the cool things that you guys are doing at Macadoodles here in just a moment. Blues made this very clear last night in all of their post-game interviews. They were thanking the fans, and then the second thing they would say is, it's one game. It was a great game. It's one game. We have a lot more left that we need to do in this series. And it was clear that was the message from Jim Montgomery to the team post-game. Where does this set them up, in your opinion? How do you view where we're at and what the rest of the outlook is for this series?
I said Blues in 6 before this started. I'm going to stick to it.
Wow.
I'm still doing it. And I think what you just said there actually kind of dates back even to Craig Berube. He's kind of had a viral moment or two in the last week where Toronto scores.
And tells Mark Savard to calm down on the bench.
And Chief no-sells it.
God, that was
total
awesome.
no-sell on the bench, and it's like, oh, dude, that's awesome.
I read his lips on that. Mark Savard jumps up on the bench and is celebrating, and Berube looks at him and he goes, what the bleep are you doing?
Yeah. So, you learn these things through your career, and there's enough players from that team still in town here in St. Louis that know that. But I think it's the same for Monty. And I do think that they're in a place where the Blues control their own destiny, even though they're down 2-1. Because in my eyes, they take care of business in this Game 4, and they have all the momentum on their side.
Yep.
They're only going back to Winnipeg for one game. All they need to do is hold, serve, steal, and on the road. That's it. And they haven't been far off. Game 1 and 2, they weren't far off. Game 1, weird game. Game 2, a couple of bounces. Maybe they don't run out of gas in the third. Play 12 forwards and 6Ds, please.
Get a little healthier. Thomas and Parayko look a little better now.
I think they're in a good spot.
They did it in 2019. It's the flip in the first 4 games of they won in Winnipeg, and then Winnipeg won 2 on home ice. But Game 5, they went to Winnipeg. They win. That was the Jaden Schwartz late goal.
Mm-hmm.
And then Game 6, they come home, and they just blow them out of the water.
I'm just hoping that we see for Game 6 the red eyes show up, and it's Dylan Holloway. I'm back. Not that seems likely.
I wouldn't hold out hope for that.
I was going to say, wouldn't it?
Just keeping that one in the back of my mind. I wish, but.
All right, Mike McKenna joins us each and every Friday here on BK and Ferrario. We always enjoy the time, especially now that we're into the playoffs. Mike, what do you guys have going on at Macadoodles?
Couple cool things this week. On Thursday, we've got an additive-free tequila 101 event. So we're going to be making some margaritas. We got chips and salsa from Sugar Fire next door. Had some last night. Man, that tomatillo salsa was fire. Next night after that, on Friday night, Old Forester comes in for a full bourbon dinner. Okay, $50 ticket gets you a Sugar Fire buffet. They're going to do hot Kentucky brown. What are these sandwiches for the Derby? Hot browns. Yes, Kentucky hot brown sandwiches. We got that dinner going, and then I tell you what, this weekend I just got a ton of stuff in. Okay, so I legitimately have some allocated things going on the shelves this weekend. Everything from new Frank August release to 13th Colony to some Maker's Mark that just came in. We did get the magic BLANTONS word. There will be a few of those on the shelf over the weekend, but I promise anybody that comes into Macadoodles is going to notice it, that we're starting to really ramp up and get some cool items in, and wine just keeps going too, man. It just keeps getting better and better over there. Our set just gets $15 to $20 wines that are just killer that you can't get at other places. So we're excited.
Mike, we appreciate the time as always. We'll see you over at Macadoodles. We'll see you next week here on BK and Ferrario. All the best, man. Hopefully we're talking about the Blues winning in 6. When are we talking with you again next?
I hate predictions, but man, I just got a feeling.
I love it. I love
Mike
it.
Mike McKenna, appreciate his time as always here on BK and Ferrario. We'll give our biggest takeaways from round 1 of the NFL draft next year on 101 ESPN.
Live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the E&B Granite Studios, this is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Fedurko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
All right, that was awesome. Mike McKenna just gave us as much insight into goalie play as you'll find anywhere. If you missed any of our conversation with him, be sure to check it out on the podcast page. 101ESPN.com and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. Mike breaking down Connor Hellebuck and his struggles in the playoffs. I haven't heard anything like that anywhere else. So, again, I highly recommend checking that out after the show today. Let's get to the NFL draft from last night. Alex, there were fireworks in this one. Started off the way everybody anticipated. Cam Ward goes number 1 overall to the Tennessee Titans. There was zero intrigue on that pick. So much so that the NFL draft, ESPN, Adam Schefter, while they were announcing Cam Ward as the pick to the Tennessee Titans, Adam Schefter interrupted the commissioner on the broadcast to say, there's been a trade! And Travis Hunter was the selection, but not to the team that we were anticipating. The Cleveland Browns traded down to number 5 overall. The Jaguars, whose new general manager comes from the Rams, said bleep them picks. He moves up to number 2 to be able to get Travis Hunter. And in doing so, trades the 5th overall pick, the 36th overall pick, a 4th-round pick, and next year's 1st-round pick for the rights to select Travis Hunter. And this is where I want to begin our NFL quick hitters from last night's NFL draft. Alex, was that too much for the Jaguars to give up?
It's a lot.
Travis Hunter?
It's a lot, man. I mean, especially you're not getting a quarterback with all of those because you're trading next year's 1st-round pick, too. And, I mean, if you're the Jaguars, you're thinking we're going to be in the playoffs next year. So it's not going to be bleep them picks. But, yeah, let's hope. We've seen other teams make trades, i.e. the Carolina Panthers, and it's the 2nd overall pick, and the Bears take it. So it's a lot. But if Travis Hunter is the generational player they're making him out to be, and it sounds like Jacksonville's willing to use him on the secondary side defensively just as much as they're going to use him as a wide receiver, I mean, if you're them, you've got the quarterback. At least you believe so. I don't. You've got the running back. Now you've got 2 weapons offensively with Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter. And if he helps out defensively, it's a lot. But if it works, it's a genius move.
It reminded me so much of, remember when the Texans in the same draft were like, we can't decide, we don't know. We really like C.J. Stroud, but we also really like Will Anderson, and they decided we're going to take both.
Let's get both.
So they took C.J. Stroud and then traded up to the number 3 overall pick with the Arizona Cardinals and did so with the 12th overall pick, the 33rd overall pick, a 1st-round pick in the following year, and a 3rd-round pick in the following year to go get Will Anderson Jr., the defensive end at the time out of Alabama, and it's worked out. It was super aggressive. It was something that I criticized at the time, but then you look at it and you're like, man, those are the 2 building blocks for what their team has ultimately become. Was it too much for Travis Hunter last night? I think yes. I think it was too much. I would not have had the cojones to make a move like that. I respect the hell out of the fact that the Jags did it. This was a draft with basically 3 elite-level talents. Travis Hunter might go down as the Shohei Ohtani of the NFL. Don't know if it's going to work out for him. I've never seen anything like this. And if you're the Jaguars and you think you have the quarterback and you believe you've got an elite-level wide receiver with the guy that they drafted last year out of LSU and Brian Thomas Jr., and now you add Travis Hunter to that mix, all right, we got something cooking offensively. We've got a new coach in here that we think is going to get the best out of our quarterback. Yeah, our defense is not super great, but whatever. We'll get to that when we get to that, and maybe Travis Hunter will help in that regard as well. I respect it. I think it's going to be fun as hell to watch. I just personally wouldn't have had the cojones to do it.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have had the guts to do it either, but I really like it. And I know it probably is too much. I love the move. I love the big swing because it is kind of in the less than. Now, granted, he waited until they were in a Super Bowl window, but I love the approach of F them picks. And I love that, look, you take a player like Travis Hunter, you try it on both sides of the ball. I don't think it's going to work out. I think it's too much toll on the body for an NFL player to do it. College, I think you can get away with it. I don't think you can get away with it in the NFL. But you know what? If it does work, and I didn't think Ohtani would be able to pitch and hit, dude, there is significant value in having a guy that can be a potential elite wide receiver and potentially a shutdown corner. You got that in one guy instead of having to find 2 guys to do that. Yeah, I'm in. I love the move by the Jaguars to say, okay, let's try this. Why not? If it fails, we're going to be fired anyways. I'll go back to my assistant GM
Get a
role.
job elsewhere.
That's the thing. Like, okay, so you don't take Travis Hunter. Cool. What's the backup plan? Well, you stick at number 5, and you probably take one of Ted McMillan, the wide receiver out of Arizona, or like Mason Graham, who ultimately went to the Browns at number 5 overall. So we get a run-stuffing defensive lineman or a wide receiver that has said on video, I don't like watching football, including watching film. Or I can go get Travis Hunter, who's the most exciting prospect at a non-quarterback position in years. I respect it. I like the move by them, even if I couldn't have done it. All right, the next thing that I wanted to get to, Ashton Genty. All of the rumors were true. The Raiders love him. It's Pete Carroll. Come on, man. We should have known this. Why did we ever question the fact that Pete Carroll was going to get his running back? He goes to the Las Vegas Raiders. What do you think of the fit? If you're in a fantasy draft next year, is Ashton Genty one of the guys that you're going to be targeting?
Yes, but not in the first round. Like he's going to be one of
Then
those.
you ain't
like,
getting him.
Yeah, probably. But I don't think that's going to be worth it because I still don't think that's a complete offense yet, and I still think there's still work to be done. I think they're going to use him a lot, which is probably why it's going to be sexy. But to me, your offensive line isn't that great, your quarterback isn't that great, and you've got one weapon, and it's Brock Bowers. And so, to me, it's a good pick by them because you go out there and you get the stud running back, but I don't know if it's the guy that I'm going to sit there and be like, cool, that's what Jahmyr Gibbs has been for Detroit.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about this fit. I get that they need to add and build up their offense. They're still far away, though, in my opinion, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Look, they finally have stabilized, and I say stabilized because I'm not sure how much longer Geno's got, but they stabilized the quarterback position. You got a stud in Brock Bowers, but you don't really have any weapons on the outside that you're going to throw the ball to. And that offensive line, as Alex said, isn't very good. And now you just brought in a running back with a 6th overall pick. Like, I understand he's probably going to be someone that's drafted very high in fantasy. I think you're overdrafting him if you're going to the first round. So I would stay clear of him. I don't think this is going to work. And to me, it's a waste of a pick at 6 overall.
I thought it was smart. I think he's one of the only elite talents that were remaining on the board. I think he might have been the elite talent that remained on the board. You can make an argument for Armand Membu, who went with the next selection, the former Mizzou offensive tackle. But give me elite talent on my team, I'll figure out the rest. I can find a defensive lineman in the second round. I can find an edge rusher. Like those kinds of things we'll get to. The Raiders have a lot of needs. You're right, T-Bone. Give me the elite talent. I got to start collecting those blue chip players first, and then we'll make it work from there. I think Pete Carroll will know exactly what to do with Genty. I would take him in the first round of the fantasy draft this year just because I think he's going to get the ball like every time the Raiders have an opportunity to give it to him, they're going to give it to him. 300-plus touches this year for Ashton Genty.
Don't take Ashton Genty then if PK would take him in the first round.
All right, last non-quarterback that I wanted to get to was the Atlanta Falcons, who take Jalen Walker at number 15 overall, defensive end out of Georgia. That was no surprise. A lot of people had him mocked there going into the draft. But then they make a surprise selection. T-Bone's team did end up trading the LA Rams. I said, watch out for them.
First round, we don't like it.
They might trade up, go get themselves a Jackson Dart. Maybe they decided to go get a quarterback in Shedeur Sanders. No, they didn't do that. They got all the way out of the first round. Rams sent the number 26 overall pick to the Falcons. Falcons really wanted another edge rusher. Not one, but 2. James Pierce out of Tennessee. So what did they send in return, Alex? Well, they sent their 2nd round pick and 7th round pick this year. And they said, we'll give you our 1st round pick in next year's draft as well. A lot to give up for the Atlanta Falcons to move up to number 26 overall with the LA Rams. Alex, I hated the move. I didn't understand this at all. I would imagine that Anthony Stalter is going to be ranting and raving about this later on today. I understand you need an edge rusher, but do you really need an edge rusher so much that you needed to trade next year's first to get up to number 26 overall? That's crazy.
I actually kind of liked it. Because I think their biggest weakness last year was their inability to rush the quarterback. And now you go out there and you get 2 pass rushers in the first round. Is it expensive? Yeah, probably. But you had a weakness, and now you got 2 young guys that are cost-controlled with 2 first-round picks.
James Pierce better be a stud.
He better be. But, I mean, if he is and you're good this year, then you don't really care about what next year's first-round pick is because now you got 2 elite pass rushers to go with an offense that's already made for you to have success with.
All right, last thing here, T-Bone. The Giants did move up to get a quarterback. They went with Jackson Dart, which means Shedeur Sanders is still on the board in the 2nd round. Were you surprised when it was Jackson Dart's name that was called as the Giants selected at 25 overall?
I was because I didn't think Dart was a first-round quarterback. I thought there were 2 guys that were going to grade out as first-round QBs in this draft. Cam Ward, who went number 1 overall, and then Shedeur. I understand Shedeur did terrible, apparently, in interviews. He must be one of the worst interviews we've ever seen. But I I still thought somebody's going to take a shot in the first round, especially because you had teams that were starving at quarterback, like the Pittsburgh Steelers, who right now they're I can't even tell you who's in their quarterback room because it's just a bunch of scrap pieces, and they're waiting on Aaron Rodgers to decide, but he's probably in a darkness retreat. It made all the sense in the world of, hey, Shedeur Sanders makes perfect sense for the Pittsburgh Steelers. You take him, he graded out as a first-round quarterback, and you get that fifth-year option, which is so important. And nobody elected to do that. I was surprised. I thought when the Giants trade up, they were going Shedeur. That is what I truly thought. It was going to be Shedeur, not Jackson Dart, because I don't see him as a first-round quarterback. I thought that was a desperate move and an unwillingness from the Giants to say, hey, let's actually take the first-round quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, they view Jackson Dart as better. They might be wrong.
And
they might be wrong.
I think Dable and what's the GM's name?
Why am I blanking on his name? It doesn't matter. Go ahead.
Both of them are fired. Those guys are gone at the end of the year. I'm shocked that they decided to go with this. They're not going to see this through. They drafted what they think is a future first round. They're not winning any football games. Their owner's going to fire those guys.
Yeah, I'm in a total agreement with you, but I don't think it's crazy to say that Dart could be better than Shedeur Sanders. I think we have been way too definitive. We don't know anything about any of these quarterbacks, dude. If we've learned anything over the years, it's that. I thought Deshaun Watson was going to be better than Patrick Mahomes. That has obviously not.
I thought Mac Jones was going to be the first one to win a Super Bowl.
Exactly. So let's not be too definitive on which one of these guys will or will not work out.
I have an opinion here. I'm going to say it. Dart's not going to work in New York.
I don't think it's going to work because their team's terrible. And I think this was a desperate move for them to go up to 25. But all of the reports that were coming out is that Brian Dable didn't like Shedeur Sanders, and he loved Jackson Dart. So if that is the case, I get it. That's cool by me. We all think that Shedeur is going to be a Brown by the end of the second round.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I saw a mock draft earlier today. I think they go Luther Burden with that first pick in the second round, and then they take Shedeur with the second pick that they have in the second round.
Makes a lot of sense. I do think Luther Burden will go early. If he doesn't go to the Browns, I think he will probably end up being a Tennessee Titan.
Yeah, that makes sense.
He's Alex. That's T-Bone. I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. In 15 minutes, we'll dive into the junk drawer. But next, the Blues changed their plan of attack last night. Could not have worked out any better. What led to this? How did it happen? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. It's a busy time in St. Louis sports this weekend. Kicking off this weekend, the Cardinals are opening a series against the Milwaukee Brewers. First pitch tonight is at 7:15. And then on Saturday, the Battlehawks will be welcoming in the Michigan Panthers at 6 o'clock. Moving into Sunday, Blues playoff game 4 will be happening right here on 101 ESPN. Pregame starts at 11 o'clock, and then puck drop is at noon. And then on Sunday as well, City SC is taking on LAFC on Sunday at 6 as well. I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. We're broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. E&B Granite, Bernie Fedurko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
It's time for a Blues playoff report presented by English Sweep Fireplace and Chimney Restoration. Schedule your chimney inspection at EnglishSweep.com.
Hellebuck's seeing a lot of shots there in Winnipeg. He can control the rebound, and then the way that they play, they have 5 guys in front of the net. They're able to clear the rebounds and come out the other end there. So we just wanted to make life a little bit harder with traffic and more pucks directed at the net, and our guys did a great job of establishing the forecheck and letting us play a little bit more time in the offensive zone. That helped us out quite a bit.
That was Cam Fowler after the game last night talking about what the Blues changed in their game plan leading into game number 3 with Alex and T-Bone on BK. Jordan Deacon back in the studio for us today. Alex, it worked. The Blues got more shots on net. They attempted more shots, and it was really the defensemen that changed things. In game number 2, the Blues defensemen had a total in all situations, power play, penalty, anything, 14 shot attempts. Not necessarily shot on goal, shot attempts. In Game 3, the Blues defensemen had 31 shot attempts, more than doubled what they had done the game prior. And you could feel it early on. It was like, puck gets on your stick, you got an opening, shoot it. Shoot it now. Create chaos in front of the net. Give yourself a rebound opportunity. Just do anything to make life more difficult for Connor Hellebuck. And their plan worked, man. We saw last night the transition game was there. I thought Mike McKenna broke that down really well earlier today on how Jordan Binnington allowed that to happen and how the forwards played into it. Just the overall team game was so much better, but to focus in on the biggest change from game 1 and 2 to game 3, to me it was the defensemen and how much they were activated within the offensive game.
You entered game 3 with both sides of their defensive core having a total of 2 points, and they were both assists. So no defenseman had scored yet in the series. And if you go back and look from 4 Nations break till the end of the regular season, the Blues had the best offensive core in defense in the National Hockey League. So something was missing. And when we were talking about the even strength goals and why aren't they scoring, well, it's because the defensemen aren't involved. And then you look at what they've done in game number 3, to me, they're active in the offensive zone, and they're jumping into the rush. There's 3-on-2s, and when the defensemen are involved, typically when the defenseman is the guy in the middle, that's when the goaltender starts to panic, because most times it's Colton Parayko, it's Philip Broberg, it's Cam Fowler. Those are big dudes coming down the gut of the ice to you, standing in front of the net, and that's how you get those goal-scoring opportunities. But in all reality, the offense doesn't begin unless the defensemen are getting out of their zone quickly. And that's the part that was different from game 1 and 2 versus 3. There was one touch, and it was out of the zone. There were times that Falk got it on his stick, and he wasn't looking for the pass. He would skate it. There were times that when Colton Parayko or Broberg got it, it was just a matter of turn around the boards and go straight up the gut of the ice. Winnipeg, the reason they looked panicked was because they've never seen that. They haven't dealt with that in the playoffs so far. So the offense is created, those rush chances are created, and the defensemen getting involved are because they're not spending any time in their own end. And when Winnipeg is chasing down the defenseman who's jumping up into the rush, that's how you get the other 5 guys scattered of like, wait, who are we blocking here? Because it's typically your 3 forwards, and the defensemen are waiting for the forwards to come in. So I think the Blues really focused on making sure Winnipeg didn't have the answers to what they were doing offensively. And when you've got Broberg jumping in, Tucker jumping in, Parayko all pinching in behind the goal line, that's when Winnipeg starts to get into the chaos mode, and that's where I think the Blues capitalize.
And it becomes that positionless hockey that we've talked about before in the past, where the Blues are just cycling everything in. They get the line changed. Now they're hemmed in their own zone. It felt like what the Winnipeg Jets, honestly, had done to the Blues in the first two games of the series, especially in the second, like back half of the second period, and then certainly the entirety of the third period. It felt that way, where the Blues just had all of the momentum. The ice tilted in their direction. T-Bone, what did you see as you were watching from up top last night that led to their success offensively?
I think it's that positionless hockey, as you said it. I mean, I think when the Blues are playing their best since Jim Montgomery was hired, just take out the fact that if you knew what the defensemen are, right? Like, we watch the Blues, so we know, like, 55, Braco, he's a defenseman. 17, Fowler, he's a defenseman. If you were a casual fan and I just said, hey, just watch these numbers, forget their position, to Alex's point, they could be below the net, they could be in front of the net. Like, they are playing positionless hockey to where they just continue to cycle around. And I think that's when the Blues are at their best. Mm-hmm. We can talk about line combinations all we want, and we spend a lot of time on that between games 2 and 3, and what will they do? Will they put Texier in or not? Blues play their best hockey when the defensemen are up creating opportunities. I mean, 29 shot attempts at 5-on-5 26 shot attempts from your defense last night at 5-on-5. That's insane. And they got 10 of those on target.
Think of some of the best offensive teams right now in the National Hockey League. The Toronto Maple Leafs have scored 12 goals in the playoffs. The Kings, the Minnesota Wild have all scored 12 goals. Think of the players that they have on those rosters. Brock Faber and Jared Spurgeon for Minnesota. You've got Drew Doughty and Brant Clark, who are offensive weapons.
You're talking about defensemen.
Defensemen, yeah, jumping in. And then the Toronto Maple Leafs with Morgan Riley. Like, the teams that are having success in the NHL today don't have stay-at-home defensemen. They have two-way defensemen who can play offense just as much as they can play defense. And that's why I think the Blues have scored 11 goals right now in the National Hockey League playoffs, because they're getting the offense from their defensemen. And if they're not scoring, you know what they're doing? They're putting it on net with bodies in front of the net. And that was the other area of emphasis that Jim Montgomery wanted to make. He's like, I don't care about shots. We could finish the game with 12 shots on goal, and I'm not upset about it. I care about shot attempts and where you're putting the shots, and are there bodies in front of the net? Are there shots with purpose? He put it. That's what last night was. Fowler picks up a lot of those assists because those shots were with purpose, because there was 3 or 4 guys standing in front of the net.
And that's where you get the deflections. That's where you get the rebound opportunities. Like, you got to have guys that are going into those dirty areas. And you could feel it last night, especially when you're watching from up top. When you're at the game, you can see this even more than when you're just seeing it on your television. Dude, there is hell to pay when you go to the front of the net in these playoff games right now. Winnipeg, like, you see bodies flying. The moment that the puck goes in the air and it's shot from the point, boom, it becomes chaos in front of the net. Good luck. And I think it was Sonny especially, like 3 or 4 times just on the ice, sprawled all out because he just got back checked 6 different times. It's not an easy thing to do. But last night the Blues were willing to go there, and it paid off for him. It paid off in a really, really big way. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. Coming up in about 10 minutes, we'll continue our conversation with the Blues and specifically what they got out of Thomas and Buchnevich last night. Final thing on this, though, this comes from the 636. Guys, did last night's game for you change the momentum in the series and put it in favor of the Blues? I think the Blues have swung momentum toward them. But it's still a 2-1 series in favor of Winnipeg. So the Blues still have to take advantage of what's in front of them on Sunday. I would also add this. Alex, you mentioned the kind of the cat and mouse game that's taking place here. The Blues changed things going into game number 3, and it paid off for them. I don't think Winnipeg's just going to come into game 4 with the exact same game plan that they had going into game 3 and expect it to go a lot differently than it did in game 3. I think they're going to adjust. So now we find out, okay, what's Winnipeg's adjustment? How does that look against what the Blues tried in the last game? And then, if it works, well, then what is Jim Montgomery's adjustment to that? There will certainly be more of those in this series, long series. So that's a long-winded way of me saying, yes, I do believe that the Blues stole momentum back toward their direction, but that could change like that in Game 4, just as it did in Game number 3.
Yeah, to me, Game number 4 is going to be the first period because they're going to open up and push. And to me, if Winnipeg's changing the way that they play, that's in favor of the Blues. Because from Four Nations break until the end of the regular season, guys, that team scored 50 even-strength goals, which was 8th fewest in the National Hockey League. They're not an offensive juggernaut without Velarde and Ehlers. They have to win games 2-1, 3-2. They have to win games because of Connor Hellebuck. And if they're going to change the way that they play because they can't play as physical because they don't want to take the penalties and put the power play on the ice, well, then what's your game? Now, that can handcuff St. Louis a little bit because I think St. Louis thrives off of the physicality.
Well, my point was not necessarily the physicality, though. It's getting back to what Mike McKenna said earlier today with us, where he was mentioning, hey, they were kind of reckless with the way that they were putting the puck into the offensive zone. Maybe that's something that changes. Instead of them putting it where it rims around the boards and Binnington has an opportunity, maybe they just put it into the corner where Binnington can't go get it, and he becomes now kind of obsolete in that forechecking opportunity where they go in there and then it becomes a battle, and that's their change. So that's the kind of stuff that could change going into this.
It's possible, but I think Binnington's so mobile that even if it doesn't, like if it's going into the corner, you're going to play one-on-one with a defenseman.
Exactly.
And that's where the physical game comes into play that I think the Blues have the upper hand on.
I don't know. In Game 1 and 2, it didn't feel that way. And then in Game 3, it did shift in the direction of the Blues.
Game 1 and 2, it felt that way until the third period when the Blues ran out of gas.
Right.
But I don't think the Blues are going to run out of gas at this point. Now, that could obviously change. What I'm saying is I think Winnipeg is going to try and figure out a way to alter this momentum, but you can only play it a certain amount of ways because I think the Blues play one specific style that they're going to find a way to force you into going back to it. And what I'm trying to get at, and I might not be saying it properly, is this team's not great offensively at even strength.
Totally.
And that's where the Blues can capitalize because we know they're very good at even strength when the defensemen are involved. So what this is going to come down to is, can Winnipeg start to generate more offense if the Blues are going to play this physical brand of hockey?
Winnipeg wants this to be a low-scoring affair.
Yeah.
Because their power play is struggling right now, too, and that was a continuation of what took place at the end of the year when they were without Velarde and Ehlers. Their power play was bottom 10 in the league once those guys went down.
And their penalty kills struggling, too, which means you can't play that rambunctious style of hockey where you like to push back post-whistle.
He's Alex Estebon. I'm BK Juncture next here on 101 ESPN.
Live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the E&B Granite Studios, this is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. Let's open it up. The Junk Drawer with BK and Ferrario.
T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN, and it is time to dive into the junk drawer. T-Bone, what do you got for us today?
All right, guys. So yesterday we were at Enterprise Center, and, you know, when we went, I'm packing up my car to go yesterday. You know, I got everything in my bag, and then I packed a cup, a big cup, filled it with water that I could drink while we were at Enterprise Center. Well, I got there, parked, walked in the building, and I think I was with you, Alex, and I said, oh, man, I just realized I left my cup in my car. I'm not going to walk back down there and go get it. We've got our show meeting starting up, so I didn't think anything of it. And when I went to my car last night, after we got done with postgame, around like 1 a.m., yeah. I get in my car, and I put my stuff in the back seat, and I get in the front, and I look, and I go, I don't see my cup. And I went, now, where would I have put my cup? Because I know it wasn't Enterprise Center. I think what I did yesterday was when I parked, I told you I had
set it on top of your car.
I sat it on top of my car, and I put my bag down, and as I was trying to put like my card into the parking app to park in that parking spot, I kept telling you, like, my car, because it was something new, I was getting a notification that it was fraud. And I said, no, it's not fraud. So I activate the card again. And I accidentally put in the wrong license plate number. So I did all of that. And I think I walked away and left the cup at the top of my car. Someone saw it, took it, and walked away with it.
I've done this so many times, it's not even funny. This just must be like a...
You've taken somebody else's cup?
No. I've left stuff at the top of my car, and I've forgotten it, and it's like either fallen off. So when we had Adelaide, when she was a baby... I was by myself, and I opened up the passenger seat to put the diaper bag in, and then I opened up the back seat to put Adelaide in, and then I went and got in the car, and I started backing out of the garage, and the door caught on the garage and bent the other way. And I'm like, good stuff. And then I've also done it to where I've pulled down their stroller, because we have it up in our garage on shelves, and I'll pull it down, and I set it on top of the car just so I don't forget it, and then I get everybody in the car, and then I start backing out, and then... falls off the front of it. It's happened so many times.
Kara did this earlier today. So we went to a bakery this morning. We always go to Sucrose out in St. Charles, one of our favorite spots, one of our favorite locations, and we get stuff to go, right? So we take it home, and it's a nice little treat for us this weekend with a little guy. So she got something for us today. She puts it on top of the car before we leave Sucrose to put some stuff in the back, whatever. So we're getting ready to come here. She's driving me around today because her car is getting detailed. She realized when she got home, the treats that she had thought she put in the car were actually on top of the car, so they fell off the car as we were leaving Sucrose this morning. So I don't have any of that to go home with today, so that's a little bit unfortunate. But to your parking stories, yesterday, you guys know I decided to leave Enterprise Center. T-Bone decided to stick around. He had like 6 hours one-on-one with Alex Ferrario.
That was a long day.
Yeah, T-Bone took me away from my potential nap, which I'm not happy with.
I made the decision.
Well, that's not true at all.
I made the decision to go home between the end of our show and the start of pregame. I was cutting it a little close. So by the time that I got back, it was like I really need to find a parking spot as soon as humanly possible.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to find a spot. I thought I'd be fine. I was an hour and a half before game time. I was not fine. So finally, I get to a street, and I'm like, oh, there's a bunch of spots over here. We'll be good to go. But the parking that was available was on the other side of the street. So I was like, all right, I'll just go ahead and flip it around, park myself here. There was nobody else parked. There was an entire row of open spots available to me. Thought nothing of it. I was like, sweet, sick. I found a great spot. I'm super close to Enterprise Center. I'm ready to go. And then I got up there like right as we began pregame coverage for the station. Couldn't have worked out any better until I walked back down after the game and saw on my front dash, I was like, I paid for parking. What happened? See on my dash, I've got a parking ticket.
Nice.
Like, what happened? What did I do wrong? And it says parked on the wrong side of the street.
Oh.
I had no idea. There were 0 other cars on the street, and it didn't appear that it was a one-way. I just had gone down it. I was mortified. Had no idea that I had parked on the wrong side of the street. So I had to pay that last night. And
guys are lucky you didn't get towed.
Yeah.
That would have been rough.
Yeah,
I always panic about that when I used to have to park downtown all the time and run in, and I'd be like, man, if I come out, my car's towed. I don't know what I'm going to do.
I was in such a rush, I just didn't even look. Didn't even look to see if that could potentially be problematic. So I'll just say that was part of my parking costs.
Good day for all.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. In 15 minutes, this is where the season came unglued a year ago for the Cardinals. Can they avoid that same fate this weekend against the Brewers? We'll get into that here in just a little bit. But next, the Blues got the best version of Thomas and Buch last night. How'd they do it? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Ferrario are broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
It's time for a Blues playoff report presented by English Sweep Fireplace and Chimney Restoration. Schedule your chimney inspection at EnglishSweep.com.
Puck gets dumped in by Snuggerud. Hellebuck caught by Thomas. Blues score! Pavel Buchnevich! If you've got a hat, chuck it in your radio. And the St. Louis Blues get the goal back. Hat-trick goal for Pavel Buchnevich.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex, going into last night, Pavel Buchnevich had one career playoff goal. One. And then in that game, he has the hat trick. You got the best version of Pavel Buchnevich last night. You also, I think, got a really good version of Robert Thomas. I don't think he's at 100% right now, but he looked a hell of a lot closer to 100% last night than he did previously. I don't know that he's skating as well as he previously did, but I did think he was a little bit more physical. He was more willing to get involved in some of those puck battles, and that's what led to a Pavel Buchnevich goal when he got in on the forecheck, loose puck with Hellebuck, gets that over to Buch, boom, goes in the back of the net for the Blues. That line was the driving force on how the Blues were able to win last night. It's a million different things, right? Bennington made key saves. Defensemen got activated. Forecheck was really heavy. Physicality in the first period was great and set the tone. And then Thomas and Buchnevich, the guys that really got this thing back on track in the second half of the season, they drove the bus last night.
Yeah, your best players were better than their best players. I mean, we all remember the movie Dodgeball. T-Bone doesn't because he hasn't seen it. The scene with Gordon, when they needed Gordon to get angry and kind of become the Hulk so that they could win the dodgeball match. Somebody needs to kick Pavel Buchnevich somewhere before he goes onto the ice because that man was playing like he was out to hurt somebody. Mm-hmm. He had 6 hits, 5 shots on goal, in a 6th shot attempt that he had that was blocked, and then comes away with the hat trick. And, you know, I go back to the media scrum that he had on the off day when they were asking Buch, you know, how do you generate more offense? And he kind of chuckled the way that Buch does, to where he just kind of has that smirk on, and he says, look, it's pretty simple. We've got to cause chaos for them. They've caused chaos for us. We need to do the same to them. And how do you cause chaos? Physicality and that front presence. And look at how Pavel Buchnevich scores his goals. Robert Thomas sets him up on that first one, and he does a phenomenal job of kicking it back to himself and then putting it in, and then he gets the deflection goal. Like, that's Pavel Buchnevich at his best. I think Buch sometimes prefers to pass over shoot a little too much, and I think Pavel Buchnevich is a really good goal scorer if he wants to be, but it's okay to have that delegation in your mindset to where it's like, hey, I should pass here, because that's where the creativity comes. It's why Thomas and Buch, to me, are the pair that you can't break up, and you've got to find a winger with them, because Thomas and Buch create so much offense with their creativity that you just got to find a guy who can finish. But in a game like that, Pavel Buchnevich was the finisher, and that's how you take advantage of Winnipeg.
Can I read you real quick from Murat Artest's piece that he just put out?
Sure.
From The Athletic. For those that aren't familiar, Murat Artest is the beat writer for the Winnipeg Jets via The Athletic. He's their version of JR. Mm-hmm. He wrote the following coming off of Game 3 last night. Nothing about Perfetti's non-goal changes a fundamental truth about Game 3. The Winnipeg Jets got smoked. They were outskated, outpassed, out-hit, out-puck recovered, and dramatically outscored. This was true long before the midway point of the second period, and it was a result of the Blues start that was so dominant that Jets coach Scott Arniel said, quote, we lost the game in the first period, end quote, when asked about the magnitude of the 7-2 final score. In the rest of his response, Arniel got 1 point exactly right. Quote, it's one game, we lost one game. Whether it's 7-2 or 1-0, we lost one game in this series. He then continued. So how do the Jets resolve the problems that St. Louis is creating for them with greater regularity? How does Winnipeg prove that it's not the 21, 23, or 24 team that responded to losing one game by losing 3 more in a row? That is why we mentioned going into the series, the moment that Winnipeg loses a game, especially if it's early in the series, why I mentioned game one being so important. This is going to be what is written about. This is going to be what's talked about. Dude, you know what the next couple of days are going to be as their media is talking with players in the locker room for morning skate. They're talking with the coaches. Hey, why is this not the same? Why is this time going to be different? And maybe they have answers. Maybe this time it will truly be different. And they win game 4, and the Jets go on to win this thing in 5. Totally possible. The Jets are a very good hockey team. They could make the adjustments. But this kind of coverage after that kind of a game, it's going to be interesting.
This goes back to what Joey told us yesterday when he was on with us, and he also said it on the post-game show. Like, this isn't an inexperienced Winnipeg Jets team. This isn't a team that has a lot of experience in the playoffs. Sure, you have Lowry and Connor and Scheifele and Connor Hellebuck, but there's other guys that haven't had that experience on the – and I'll tell you the quote, we were going to get into this a little bit later, and we still can. I'll tell you the quote that got me was Scott Arniel basically saying that game was over in the first period. Man, that's a 3-goal game, and you've got 2 periods of hockey to play. And if that's the mindset you're going to have with a team of like, no, that game was lost for us in the first period, all the Blues need to do is put multiple goals up on Winnipeg early then, because this team's going to have the mindset of we're ready to crumble. I think this is still, people can call whatever they want, the President's Trophy team, a juggernaut. I think this is still a very fragile team that if you can do again what you just did tonight, guess what? A best-of-7 series becomes a best-of-3 series. And then you got to win 1 game in Winnipeg. And if you win game 5 in Winnipeg, I can almost guarantee you the guys that have been around for a while, the Scheifeles, the Connors, the Hellebucks, they're thinking, oh, shoot, this happened to us before. This happened in 2019. We lost 4 in a row against Vegas. We lost 4 in a row against Colorado. We can't sit here and act like we've still got this.
Yeah, I think for the Winnipeg Jets, and I assume this is how they will play it while their media does ask some of these questions, because this is how I feel about it. If I were in Winnipeg talking about them today, is it's a little overreaction from Game 3, right? Games get away from teams. It happens. It happens in the regular season. It happens in the postseason.
It didn't, though, to the Jets this year. One time. One time did a game get out of hand like that for the Jets all year.
And they've also struggled scoring at even strength all since the formations break.
Let's also add in their caveat, because I'm not disagreeing with that. Add in the caveat, they were down to top 4 defensemen last night, and they're down 2 of their 20-goal scorers, and they've been down with them throughout the series.
I was about to say, we don't know if that's going to change.
I think where the pressure really mounts is if you can get game 4. Like when you asked the question earlier about, like, do the Blues have all the momentum right now? I think they've got some momentum. You really will not have the full swing of momentum on your side if you don't take care of business in Game 4. Because if you go back to Winnipeg 2-2, that's when those players will really have a tough time saying, how is this different? Because if you're up 3-1, it's a lot easier to
We're all in agreement there.
Yeah.
I think there's no pressure on the Jets till you can get this series even back up.
But I think there's
2.
pressure going into this game on the Jets, thinking it's like, how are we going to handle that? They had no answers for the Blues last night.
I think there is pressure. I do not think that's necessarily going to crumble them. It's a matter of how do you respond to this adversity.
I think the first period can crumble them if you do again on Sunday what you did tonight.
It could. That's where the pressure, like, it's on the Jets, but it's also to a degree, like, it is incumbent upon the Blues to force them into the corner, right? Like, the Blues, I thought it was great last night. Jordan Bennington, after the game, was asked about the situation they're in right now. And he's like, listen, we've had our backs against the wall for the last, quarter of the season. This is nothing new for us. We knew that we had to put together a huge winning streak to be able to get to this opportunity. And now we got put with our backs against the wall again. So we've got to fight our way out of this. So the Blues aren't this is not a foreign concept to them. Bouncing back from a game like that is a foreign concept to this Winnipeg Jets team. It is. T-Bone, you had the numbers last night. They allowed that many goals in a game one time all year. They lost a game by that kind of a margin one time all year. Connor Hellebuck has some ghosts of postseasons past that are starting to reemerge after a game like that for him last night, where he was pulled in a playoff game again, guys. He's pulled again. 85% save percentage in the last 3 postseasons now, after a 92% save percentage in each of those 3 regular seasons. Why is that happening? They are also down without multiple of those players. It would be totally human to say, man, do we have enough to be able to overcome this? They're up 2-1. They're still in a pretty good spot. Game 4 is going to be fascinating. Yep. I still think that the Winnipeg Jets, despite everything that I just said, I think the Winnipeg Jets will win this series. I said going into last night's game, I thought that the Blues would win that game. It just felt like a big energy moment for them coming back home, a release potentially for them. I did not think they would get swept in the series. They're too good of a team for that. Game 4 will be telling. Coming back on Monday and discussing this, that's going to be when we really know.
I said when the series started, much like Mike McKenna, that I thought this would be a Blues in 6, Blues in 7. It'd be a long series. The 618 makes a good point. Maybe we can get to this a little bit later. But the other factor into this that Winnipeg's starting to really wonder, Jordan Binnington is a boogeyman for them. I mean, think of the goals that they've scored. Yes, they've scored, what is it, now 9 on him. But you're talking about 2 goals that I think they scored where point blank they beat Jordan Binnington. Everything else has been deflections or it's been lucky bounces.
In that first game, I mean, they basically scored 4 in that one. You know, it was the
and 3 of them were bounces that Mark Scheifele wasn't even trying to score, and 1 was the Kyle Connor goal that was the one-timer.
Coming up in about 10 minutes, we'll continue our conversation about the St. Louis Blues, but next, this is where the season went unglued over the last couple of years for the Cardinals. Can they avoid that in 2025? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Broadcasting live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the E&B Granite Studios. This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Fedurko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
This time last year, we talked about it on the show. It was the Cardinals versus the Brewers series. The Cardinals came into that thing 9-10 on the season. They had just dropped a game to the Oakland A's, but overall they were coming off of a 6-game road trip to the West Coast, 1-2 against Arizona, 2-1 against Oakland. Vibes weren't exactly great, but they were mostly fine. Come home, play a series against the Milwaukee Brewers. If you play well in this thing, you're right back on track. Season can get back onto the rails. And then they lost 2-1 in 10 innings. They lost 12-5, and then they lost 2-0. They get swept in the series, and we come back on the air on Monday and say, that team's just better than you.
Mm-hmm.
You do nothing better than them right now. In fact, they are doing all of the things that you used to do. They have a conveyor belt of young pitching that's getting up to the big league level. They have produced what appears to be at the time a potential star major league position player in Jackson Chourio. They made the aggressive move in season early in the year to acquire Willy Adames, and it could not have paid off any better. They got the catcher, the brother of the catcher that you got. They got him for a lower price, and he's a better player for what they need than what you had at the time with Wilson Contreras after you signed him to this massive contract. He ends up not even playing catcher anymore for you. They're doing all of the things that you do, but better. And it was hard to take, but it was the reality that we had to face. Well, welcome to 2025. Cardinals are 10-15 right now. The season feels for a lot of fans like it could be getting ready to go off of the rails. 10-24 2 years ago, start of the year. 15-24 start to last season. What do they have in them? That's what we're about to find out this weekend, because you've got Libby, Gray, and Fetty on the mound. Those are the three dudes you would want to turn to if you're the Cardinals. But you got a bullpen that you don't trust, an offense that's scuffling a little bit right now, and a fan base that's ready to check out on the season at a moment's notice. I can't wait to see what the Cardinals have in them this weekend against the team that last year, for a lot of fans, certainly for you, Alex, ultimately put an end to them really having like an engagement on an everyday basis.
It's interesting, too, because last season, there were 2 times that I was just done. Once the Milwaukee Brewers, and the one in April that you're referencing, but then they lost 3 of 4 in Milwaukee after they had already lost the series to the White Sox. So, Milwaukee has been the big brother that always seems to beat you at one-on-one, and it just frustrates the hell out of you. But to me, that's a turning point in this one. And that's why I said yesterday, it's not just this series. I think it's the Cincinnati Reds as well. That's the next series. Because these are 2 NL Central teams. Yeah, you've lost to some really good pitching, and yeah, you lost to the Braves, and you lost to the Mets, and you lost to those teams. But if you want to be a playoff team, which I don't know if anybody's putting that label on this team right now. We've all talked about the transition, but they think they're a playoff team. Go beat this team. Go win 2 or 3 against the Milwaukee Brewers. Because if you can't, then you're falling into the same narrative as you have been over these last couple of years of, hey, you're a really good team, but you can't beat the teams that you're supposed to beat in the NL Central.
Or you're a bad team. One of those two. Those are the narratives that could exist.
We had those arguments as well. We had those arguments as well. They're not a bad team. They're just not doing things good right now. But if you can't win...
God, it sounds so ridiculous when I say it like that.
Well, somebody said that on the show.
That's a nice, polite way to say that.
I forget who said that on the show.
Yeah.
You got 2 or 3 against Milwaukee. You've laid a couple of eggs over these last few series. But if you do that again, I think there's a lot of people in the fan base that are kind of already walking on eggshells with the Cardinals. If you lose 2 or 3 to the Brewers and then lose 2 or 3 to the Cincinnati Reds, I'm not sure how you gain people back on board with this Cardinals team.
And a big storyline this weekend, T-Bone, is what are you going to do about this bullpen? How are you going to utilize these pieces? Because you should have Helsley, you should have Leahy, you should have Maton. Those guys should be available for you, ready to go. But at least one of the games, you're going to have to go to somebody else.
Yeah.
And odds are pretty strong. You're not going to get 3 consecutive quality starts out of your starter, so maybe you have to cover a 6th inning in there somewhere as well. So you will have to turn to these other options in your bullpen. John King's going to have to pitch at some point. They're probably going to have lefty guys that come up, which means JoJo Romero is probably going to have to pitch at some point. And, yes, you might have to go to Swanson. That guy might have to throw in a Major League Baseball game. It is actually
Only
allowed.
Blowout.
And Ryan Fernandez might have to enter a game. I haven't seen anything yet suggesting that he's been sent down to the minor league, so my assumption is at this point in time, he'll be a part of the roster going into this weekend. Man, I think that is the storyline heading into this weekend for the Cardinals, is how Ollie navigates that and what they do when they get those opportunities.
Yeah, I agree, because I think you laid it out perfectly. Look, your big 3 are not going to pitch in all 3 games of this series. The ideal formula for the Cardinals is you get 6 innings tonight from Liberatore. You can then turn to the big 3, and they don't have a blow-up, and you capture game 1. Then you kind of figure it out in game 2. It's probably, if we're being honest right now, the way their bullpen is laid out, a scheduled loss. And then game 3, you get 6 innings from your starter again, and you go back to the same formula. That's the way they're going to win these games right now. I am surprised that they are sticking with Ryan Fernandez. I thought a lot of what we heard post-game after their last loss was more of kind of the coaches speak than anything else, of just, hey, right now he's on the roster, so I've got to defend him, which is totally what Ali Marmol's job is to do.
Absolutely.
I'm shocked the front office didn't make a move, and you're right. I mean, at some point, they're going to have to go to those guys. They can say all they want that they wanted to try and get Fernandez low-leverage spots. Guys, that is really easy to say, very hard to find. And especially the way that the offense is going right now, where they are scuffling a little bit, you're not going to separate yourself from teams. So I am surprised they aren't making a bullpen move. And I think these two series, the Milwaukee one, the bullpen, yes, is going to be the biggest storyline of the weekend. And then when they go to Cincinnati for 4, I think these 3 teams, Milwaukee, Cardinals, and Reds, are in that second tier right now in the National League Central. I think it's easily the Cubs in tier 1, and I think we all thought that going
Cubs
into the
are
year.
already done, by the way, with their series this season against the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks.
Oh, that's lucky.
Yeah, and they're above 500. They've survived to tell the tale.
And their offense has been one of the best offenses in baseball.
And they're surviving without Justin Steele now. Like, the Cubs look
luck
like
in
they're
El
in their
Central.
own tier. But the reason that I bring this up is, hey, look, I think Cardinals fans, maybe they're not at this acceptance phase yet. We all kind of thought, okay, probably not a playoff team. You hope you get positive returns on the season going into 2026. But to me, he still should be a little bit better than the Brewers and the Reds, right? I think those 3 teams are equal right now. Both are very young, too. Who's going to be the one that kind of emerges as first place in this second tier? I think it's very important to see what they look like. But you're right. I mean, you lose 2 or 3 to Milwaukee. I mean, before we even get to that Red Series, people will already be out on the St. Louis Cardinals.
He's Tanner Hendrickson. That's Alex Ferrario. I'm Brandon Kiley. Cardinals play 3 against the Milwaukee Brewers this weekend. It is a couple of lesser-known pitchers on the mound over the next 2 days for the Milwaukee Brewers, both of whom have been quite good for them thus far. Chad Patrick, you heard of him before, Alex?
I have not.
Well, he has appeared in 5 games, started 4 of them so far this year, and has a 2.1 ERA.
Big fan of the name Chad.
Yeah. And then Quinn Priester is the next guy that you'll see. He is formerly with the Boston Red Sox last year, had a brief stint with the Pittsburgh Pirates for a couple of years as well.
He, by the way, I think he's the one.
Yeah, he's
was
the one
their aggressive move this year, which
where
was
they traded the outfielder,
they were
right?
Yep, they were struggling with their pitching because all their pitchers were hurt. They didn't have any starters. So what did they do? They didn't do the ho hum. What are we going to do? We'll go with a bullpen game. They gave up overpaid for him to bring him into their system
like
to be a starter,
pick, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a comp. It was like a basically 33rd or 34th overall pick.
Well, so far 5 innings, 1 earned run, 5 innings, 1 earned runs, 4 innings, 2 earned runs for him. He does have some walk issues thus far, but he's been pretty darn effective in his opportunities. And then on Sunday you'll get Jose Quintana. Good luck. Cardinals versus the Brewers this weekend in a 3-game set. Coming up next, the Blues win was huge, but it was also necessary. What comes next is going to be even more telling. What are we expecting in Game 4 of this series between the Blues and the Jets? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. This weekend, we will have NBA action for you on Saturday night starting at 7 o'clock. And then on Sunday, Game 4 of the Stanley Cup playoffs between your St. Louis Blues and the Winnipeg Jets kicks off. Pregame show right here on 101 ESPN will begin at 11 o'clock, and then puck drop is at noon. And right after that, we'll have MLB action for you pregame starting at 5. I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. We're broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. E&B Granite, Bernie Fedurko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Every game has its own momentum and its own feel to it, so all it is game 3 in our mind. You know, we came out, had a great first period that helped us get back in the series and helped us win the hockey game tonight, but when that puck drops on Sunday, none of that matters. So it's about the preparation between now and then and getting ready for a huge game on Sunday, but it's nice to play on home ice, you know, in front of our fans. That we've worked really hard to have that opportunity, and we made the most of it tonight.
Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. That was Cam Fowler last night. I thought everybody had the same message, and I thought it was great. The players and the coach, Jim Montgomery, and I'm sure this came from the coach and Jim Montgomery, Alex. It was a great win. It was a special win last night at Enterprise Center and a necessary win for the Blues last night at Enterprise Center. Got the fans going, got them excited, made you believe no matter what happens the rest of this series, man, this team is on the right path. They're without Dylan Holloway right now, and they were able to do that against the President's Trophy team. They're on the right path here, and at some point, maybe in the not-too-distant future, this is going to be a real contender here in St. Louis again. That's what that win allowed for, not just in this series, but big picture-wise. But, Alex, it's just one game. It's just one game. And if they don't follow that up with another good performance on Sunday, it's basically all for naught, because teams don't go down 3-1 and then end up winning the series. It just doesn't happen, especially not against a team like this in Winnipeg. So, how do they capitalize on it? How do they make that more than just a one-game sample size where they went out there and much like Game 1 and 2, you have the great start, but then they finish. They finish in that third period last night. How do they sustain that level of play going into Sunday?
I mean, it's going to have to be, first of all, have a quick memory like they're talking about right now, forgetting about what one good game looks like, because you know that there were 2 games that weren't as good, that you have to also remember how you played so that you don't do that again. To me, if you want to replicate this, you're going to have to step the physical game up another level. And I know that sounds wild to say, considering we saw 63 hits last night for the Blues. But you've set a precedent now to where Winnipeg's expecting a physical game. And if you just drop off of that and say, no, we'll play the cycle game, or no, we'll just do the dump and chase and whole power play helps us, that's not going to cut it. There's a standard now that Winnipeg's expecting, and I think you have to drive them through the wall as you continue with this one. Because reading a couple of pieces from Ken Wiebe and Murat Ates, Winnipeg's going to have a push in the first period on Sunday. They know that, just the way that the Blues opened up that first period. So you're going to have to weather the storm a little bit. But if you want to continue to have the same offense that you just had, it's going to come down to driving them through the wall. If you went into this series thinking it's like, look, we're going to make sure that they feel this series against us, you can't let up. You have to continue to do that. So I think for this series to go on any further, you're going to have to keep banging up the Winnipeg Jets' body. That's going to create offense. That's going to create turnovers. That's going to generate that even strength.
And I think most importantly, we can talk about the physicality. The most important one for me is I'd hone in on that top line. It clearly worked last night.
Yeah.
If you can really bang up that top line a little bit like they did last night, bring that physical element to it, it slowed them down. And then it allowed you then to get into the cycle game, what you were talking about. They held more offensive possession when that Scheifele line was on the ice. I loved their game plan. I was a little skeptical of when they said that. I was fearful of, okay, are they going to be chasing hits? Are they going to be chasing too much? And that wasn't the case last night. They were pretty well, for the most part, pretty good at picking their times of when to
Winnipeg
hit
was
that
chasing.
There was
top
one
line.
time where it came back to bite.
And that was the goal where Neighbors chased after.
And that was also because Shen got tied up with a 2-on-1 on the offensive zone, and he went down, and Neighbors tried to go back and
But Neighbors shouldn't have been in it. That was a spot where
Neighbors, this guy was the back
I think it was Tucker. I think Tucker had it where he could have just battled against the boards.
Neighbors got too aggressive on it and didn't have the guy behind him.
And that's just, it's a tough spot. He was going for the physicality. He thought you could win the board battle, and then it ended up with a guy being
playoff rookie.
Yeah, it's a rookie. It's a mistake that you learn as you go through this one.
The fact that I can remember one moment where it happened speaks to how rare it was, where it felt like they were chasing the hits.
But even in the first two games, could you remember where it felt like they were getting out of place and reckless? Because I don't.
Yeah, I feel like there were a few times where you had two guys on one below the net.
But it never really felt like there was odd man rushes, though, for Winnipeg.
No, I
agree
with that.
Like, and maybe the 2-on-1s you're talking about that's why you were losing the offensive zone time, because you had two guys on one and you were turning the puck over and weren't creating it. But they've never gotten reckless to the point where you're seeing odd man rushes and breakaways for Winnipeg, which is a really good sign that the structure they have in place is working.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think at times you could see they were seeking hits, but that may have been more in the offensive zone behind the net rather than what you're saying where they're trying to pinch it in and then you get caught on the 2-on-1, because you're right. They really limited the odd man rushes. But that has become what their clear goal is right now, which is just to kind of bang up that top line for them. And last night, they matched him up with Shen to start off the game. Monty said it, I think it was at practice yesterday or it was the day prior on Tuesday. Or Wednesday, excuse me, where he said, hey, if we are rolling, we're going to be rolling four lines. I'm not a matchups guy. And that happened last night. I mean, they sent out that second line. They banged up the top line a little bit, and then they just got off to such a fast start. He could continue to roll and didn't have to worry about matching up. If they are able to do that again in Game 4, it probably means they're going back to Winnipeg tied 2-2.
Yeah, I mean, don't look at the actual time on ice from that game. Look at the even strength time on ice. Robert Thomas's line had 11 minutes and 24 seconds. Braden Shen's line, 12 minutes and 49 seconds. Texier, 10:04. They rolled four lines last night.
I love how you call that Texier's line.
It was Texier's line. Texier was the man last night.
It was impressive, and a lot of that is because by the third period, you just I think some of that evened out with the bottom six getting more time in that third period.
But in that first period, I mean, they were going wave after wave after wave after
100%.
wave.
They were able to match up based on the way that they wanted things to go. They started out with the WTF line against the Lowry line, then the Thomas line came in, and then it was the Shin line versus Scheifele, and that was basically what they decided they were going to go with. So early on, it was Shin versus Scheifele. They got that physicality against the Scheifele line. It worked. Forecheck was super heavy early on. They got off to an unbelievable start. Crowd was very into it. It was emotional, and that carried them to the end of the game. What I'm going to be fascinated by on Sunday is what are the adjustments that Winnipeg makes, because they're going to make something, right? There were times this year where Winnipeg, for a game, 2-3, they didn't have their best game. And I was reading in that piece by the Winnipeg Jets beat writer, he mentioned, hey, part of what made Winnipeg so special this year was their ability to quickly adjust on the fly. Whatever adjustments were necessary, they were able to find them, implement them into their game, and then the wins started to follow. What does that look like going into Sunday? They've got a couple of days to prepare, whether it's looking back at video or getting out on the ice. They will have something new for the Blues come Game 4. I will be fascinated to see what that looks like and then how the Blues adjust to that. Because the Blues clearly adjusted to what they were doing in Game 1 and 2. Does it take them another game or two to get back to that? Or can they, by the end of the first period, adjust and then win the second and the third period the way that the Winnipeg Jets did when this was back in Winnipeg? Yeah. That's going to be the task at hand for the Blues going into the weekend. We'll give you our final thoughts leading into game number 4. We'll talk a little bit about the Cardinals series against the Brewers and give you our quick thoughts leading into day 2 of the NFL draft as well, coming up next in the BK and Ferrario Rewind.
Live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the E&B Granite Studios. This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. Let's run it back with a daily rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Loom, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
And now's your opportunity to score a pair of tickets to the first ever Big League Bash. It features Adam Wainwright on Sunday, July 27th at the Factory. Join Wayno for an unforgettable evening of music, sports, and giving back to support Big League Impact. It is all taking place again on July 27th. You can get your tickets right now. Find full information at 101ESPN.com. But right now, we've got an opportunity to score that pair of tickets at 314-399-9646. That is the Air Comfort Service text line. Texter number 101. That answers the following question correctly. You're getting that pair of tickets to the Big League Bash. Earlier today, T-Bone mentioned he forgot something on the top of his car yesterday as we were going out to the Blues game. What was it that he forgot? Correct answer to that, texter number 101, is getting the pair of tickets to Big League Bash. All right, to finish out the show today, let's start out with the Cardinals. We don't have to spend too much time on this. They play 3 games this weekend against the Milwaukee Brewers. Alex, the number one storyline that you're monitoring is what?
What does your, I guess, probably the offense. Because my mindset was bullpen. Big picture, how do you play against the Brewers? But honestly, it's the offense. I like what BT said. We can complain about the bullpen all we want, but when you keep putting them into games where it's a 1-goal game by the 6th inning, what are you supposed to do? So what's your offense do against a Brewers team that's supposed to be on the same level as you?
We call it runs in baseball, but goals would work all the same.
Did I say goals?
Yeah, you did. It's all
sure.
good, man.
Let's make fun of the guy who can't speak right
T-Bone, for you, what is it that you're going to be monitoring in this one?
Mine's the bullpen because I get the whole offense thing. When your bullpen blows these games open, you're asking your offense to score 7 runs a game, 5 runs a game.
They only lost by 1 the last time.
Sure, last time. Their bullpen has let a lot of games slip away, so mine's the bullpen. Look, they want to do low-leverage spots for Fernandez. I have no idea how they're going to get to those because the offense is scuffling. So
loose. Big.
Okay, good.
I mean, that's a way.
Well, that's not ideal, but the bullpen's going to be the one. How do you do this if you don't get your starters through 6 innings? And even then, you can't have Maton, Leahy, and Helsley throw 3 straight days.
I guess it should also be, I'm going to see if the front office decides to make some type of roster move if it blows up again on them.
And Chris Roycroft, I think, is available or is eligible to come back up to the big league club tomorrow. I'd have to make sure, 100% on that, but I think it's tomorrow that he's eligible. So it might just be that they're waiting to call him back up. Maybe they just don't.
Days, it gets fixed.
It's kind of wild that they feel like they have 0 bullpen arms that could be better at the big league level than Ryan Fernandez, because that's got to be part of what this is. All right, on the NFL draft side of things, we get back in action tonight, round 2 and 3. The Browns will kick things off with the first pick in the second round. I do think that Shedeur Sanders is probably going to be a Brown, but that's the number one storyline. Locally, though, big story is where Luther Burden will go. There are a couple of teams early on that make some sense. The Texans make sense for him. I have heard that the Titans are a big fan of Luther Burden, and I think the Patriots would be a really good landing spot for Luther Burden as well. So there's a few spots that we can throw out there. Alex, the Blues back in action on Sunday. A noon start for this one. An early puck drop for the Blues versus the Jets. Game number 4. What is the biggest thing that you'll be monitoring?
It's going to be the physicality in this one. Can you continue to play the same style that you've played for the first 3 games and really take it to another level? Because I think that's what it's going to have to be. It's going to come down to weathering the storm from Winnipeg in the first period, and then how do you push back? Because even strength looked great. Can you continue to get to Connor Hellebuck's head? And to do that, you got to play physical.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see if they're able to shut down the Scheifele line like they did last night. If you're able to do that, I mean, I've talked about it for the last 2-3 days. They're winning the goaltending battle. They're winning the special teams battle. It was just a matter of winning at 5-on-5. And really, winning at 5-on-5 was slowing down that top line. So they do that again. I think we'll be talking Monday about a series that's 2-2 heading back to Winnipeg.
I really want to see if this Connor Hellebuck thing is real. Since 23, he's had 6 starts in the playoffs. He's allowed 28 on the road, 28 goals on the road in his 6 playoff starts. 885 or 850 rather save percentage. Easy for me to say. 28 goals in his last 6 road playoff games. 85% save percentage for Connor Hellebuck. That feels real.
Yep.
He's allowed 4, 5, 4, 5, 4, and 6 goals in that stretch. what are the Blues going to be able to do on Sunday? Because if they can continue that, they're going to get a win.
Yeah.
And they'll find a way to go back to Winnipeg with a chance to go up in the series with a 3-2
And even
lead.
for Hellebuck on the home ice, I mean, he's looked shaky in the first 2 games, in my opinion, so it can give you an opportunity to pounce on the road if you can continue to get to his head.
All right, last thing here. Get out on this. T-Bone, your prediction for Sunday is what? Blues versus Jets, Game 4.
I think Blues win 3-2.
4-3 Blues win.
I think that the Jets will win this one by a final score of 3-2. We will talk to you guys on Monday at 11 a.m. Plenty to break down with everything taking place over the course of this weekend.
How you kissed the fans' butts yesterday,
I know.
and then today
Seriously.
it's like, I think the Jets are going to win.
I give you my honest feelings. That's all I can do here.
You do something.
For Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Jordan Deacon did a fantastic job for us back in the studio today. We'll talk to you guys on Monday at 11 a.m. Enjoy the weekend. See you later, St. Louis.